Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 57 of Podcast vs. Enemies, a Destiny Massive Breakdowns show. This week, it's time to raid. My name is Impetus, and as always, I am joined by my co-hosts, Court and Saint Kabr. We have a lot of great information to cover this episode, so I will pass you off to Saint for some community thank yous. How are you, Saint?
I am doing well. It's good to be back this week. It's good to be talking about the raid. But we got some people to thank. Like you said, we want to thank some new patrons. We've got Prankster, Lil Hobo, Sparky Oil 2 Jr. Thank you all for joining the ranks of the patrons. It's been good to see you guys around in the lounge and in the Discord server. We also want to thank the sponsors of the show that help contribute on a massive level to keep Massive Breakdowns as an organization going week after week, month after month. A Modern Viking, Askian Monk, Binary Wolf, Blackhammer Tech, Bryce Aroni, Deacon, Moonlight, Shazzle, Sylv, This Moment, and Zen SoCal. As a reminder, you can send all kinds of feedback directly to us on our socials, Twitter and Discord, via the Massive Breakdown server in the podcast discussion channel. Positive, critical, constructive feedback always is helpful, helps the trajectory of the show, what we cover, how we present, breakdowns, builds, activities, and much more related to the PvE sandbox. We use Chartable to aggregate all of our podcast reviews, so if it takes a week or two to see your review pop up on the show, don't worry, just a little bit of delay in the way that it aggregates reviews from all of the different sources and then things like that for platforms. You can also support the show via Patreon if you enjoy what you hear and you want to contribute on a better level, higher level, I should say. That is always greatly appreciated. And honestly, even just listening to and reviewing the show is always a great way to contribute. You can also check out our sibling podcast, Destiny Massive Breakdowns, the nitty-gritty of everything in the PvP sandbox with Ill Physics and Lego Flash, and Beneath Twin Suns, the Star Wars podcast that explains it all with Mercules and Kid Ketcha. All right, let's jump in. Court, what are we talking this week?
Hello, lads. Nice to see you again this week. Yeah, we've got a very quick, very brief highlight section for the hotfix. That's 7.007, and also the 30th of March TWAB, which has some really nice upcoming details. Impetus said at the start of this episode, we have the Root of Nightmares raid. We're going to be doing recommendations and tips for the activities and encounters within the raid. And on top of that, we are back with our usual weapons breakdown for the raid as well. Just on a note regarding activity breakdowns, we've kind of talked about this kind of off and on the podcast, but we will be moving away from activity breakdowns, starting with this episode related to Root of Nightmares, and we'll be instead offering kind of tips, good to knows, weapon and build recommendations. If you are wanting a comprehensive guide to Root of Nightmares and other activities, then we do of course suggest other content creators, sort of big name highlights here, Fallout Plays and Datto over on YouTube. Alright, so what did we get up to last week in Destiny? I will kick things off here and say, well, Master did come out last week. I've done my 3 clears. I'm currently 4 out of 5 for my Rufus, so I'll hopefully get that for the next reset. I'm still getting we're trying to get my last red box iterative loop. It is elusive. It's not dropping. I keep getting the normal non-red box, but no, I'm going to keep persevering. And on top of that, I've been just working on some kind of other weapons, the ranking up. Regnant, Quillam's Terminus. I've recently got the Gold Tusk for this season, 5 out of 5, so I'm just working on that. Always love that kind of quick slice kind of samurai sword, and of course Royal Executioner, which we've covered before as well. Impetus, what have you been up to?
Yes, sir. I've also been doing some raiding as well. I did 2 master challenges for the first encounter of Root of Nightmares. Did get my first ever Adept Sidearm drop, which we'll be talking about a little bit later on in this episode. Finished up the catalysts for Verglass Curve and Touch of Malice, and then been doing a little bit of trials. We've had double rep this past week, well, this current weekend, of course, as we're recording. So I'm hoping to reset my trials rank tomorrow. Saint, how about yourself?
You know, I'm still trying to get a class at him on my Titan to hit base 1810. I've been just kind of going through the Guardian ranks, somewhat passively, somewhat actively, and it has just been a week of pinnacles. I did all the raids, which was great. Really enjoyed the challenge runs and stuff like that. And then I also did like literally every single pinnacle available this week on my Titan, including the few from trials, and I couldn't get a class item to drop, which didn't feel great. I'm really going to be happy to at least have one season off from the power grind next season. Is going to be a really nice kind of move forward. I did manage to get some solid unwavering duty rolls in trials this weekend. I played a shout out to my typical raid teammate Aeon Sigma for running some cards. Just trying to land a really nice killing tally roll and an incandescent roll, which I'm thankful to have come by, because that thing is an absolute stat monster, as we've mentioned a couple times in previous episodes. Also did a Root of Nightmare Sherpa run with just some guys from my clan, which is it's always great to see people learning like right in front of you and seeing them kind of like master mechanics and really get their movements down and stuff like that. So shout out Clan Truth, always good times with the Sherpa runs. But we had one other run again this week, didn't we?
We did. We had an excellent run with our editor Otto. Always great playing with him. That only brought us up to 4 people, so we had to find 2 others. Thankfully, we did have 2 folks jumping at the bit here, of course, Chris Proctor, Vivian Bex, always happy to run with them. So did an encounter 1 master clear, followed up by a normal run of Root of Nightmares with them. Had a great time, so thank you once again to Chris and Vivian for joining us. It was a great laugh. And a lot of deaths to swords, but maybe that was just me. I don't know. Always great running with the Otto. Great guy. Super outstanding. All right, let's get into our hotfix and TWAB highlights here. Again, we're going to go through these pretty quickly because we want to get into the raid, so we're just kind of read them off, and we'll give our thoughts at a later point in time here. Starting with hotfix 7.0.0.7, we had some difficulty changes, actually. It's kind of a bit of a surprise here. Combatant health scaling for 2 and 3 player fire teams was reduced in the Season 20 Legendary Exotic Mission. That's the Avalon mission. They also reduced enemy health in Legend and Master Tier Nightfalls, Battlegrounds, Lost Sectors, Offensives, Hunts, and Legend and Master Campaign missions as well. There was some weapon tuning that happened. They fixed an issue where the target lock trait was not correctly deactivating on a miss if the weapon was firing at 720 rounds per minute or higher. I think that was something that a lot of our PvP folks were really happy with. They also fixed an issue where some players were unable to acquire the Risk Runner Catalyst, and then they also fixed an issue where Quicksilver Storm and Touch of Malice were not receiving the 40% damage bonus against minor enemies, so that has all been taken care of. Let's move on to the TWAB, Saint. What do we have going on here?
We got some big highlights. So this is something that they kind of hinted at, and then we got a lot of detail on in this week's TWAB, and that is the upcoming primary weapon balance for the mid-season update, which I think we're suspecting to come out on either the Tuesday this episode should be coming out on, or maybe a week from then. So within the next week or so, this should be hitting the game. We open it up with a note from Chris. We wanted to see how the PvE sandbox shook out after the release of Lightfall, not necessarily to see if primary weapons needed a buff, but more to see how much we should buff them. We've done quite a bit of testing of these numbers and content ranging from a Heroic Nightfall to Legend Campaign all the way up to Grandmasters, and we think that the changes are impactful without invalidating the difficulty of the appropriate levels of the activities. The following will have increased damage versus rank and file enemies and elite enemies, aka red and orange bars. This also includes exotic weapons. So I'm going to head off just our quick numbers here, and then we'll talk about a few things that maybe are going to be really meaningfully impacted by this. So auto rifles, 20%, 25%. Pulse rifles, hand cannons, sidearms, 20%. And scout rifles, 10%. Man, that's some big buffs right there. First thing I'm going to say right off the bat, some highlights when we're looking at auto rifles, Quicksilver, Monte Carlo highlight, Rufus Fury, which we'll be talking about in this episode. You've also got some more classics like Ahmet AR2, Sweet Sorrow, Gnawing Hunger, even Reckless Oracle. When we look at pulse rifles and hand cannons, these are weapons that have really been down and not seen a lot of usage. You've got things like Outbreak Perfected, Revision 0, Graviton Lance, Collective Obligation, Revision getting some even more changes that we'll hit on in a second. Smiter Moraine, New Purpose, Disparity, Horror's Least, Velis X, Peace of Mind, some weapons that had a lot of potential, but maybe just weren't quite there. When we look at hand cannons, Thorn, Hawkmoon, Sunshot, Malfeasance, all pretty interesting exotic options depending on your build, depending on where you're playing. Ias Luna, Fatebringer, Zalu Spain, all, good trait options that just weren't quite in the meta because of their damage. And then sidearms, we've got Final Warning, Devil's Ruin, Forerunner, Michael's Reverence, which we'll be talking about. Michael, I think that's pronounced. We'll be talking about in this episode. Liminal Vigil and Brigand's Law, the original Voltshot monster, is coming back. It's got some real potential. And then Scout Rifles. Scout Rifles only got 10%, and they mentioned here that they're kind of weary of buffing Scout Rifles too much because they offer a really safe engagement distance and just have unlimited ammo. So they don't want to take that too far, but we've got options like Dead Man's Tale, Polaris, Skyburners, all pretty strong options, kind of bumping up in the meta a little bit. Hung Jury, you got Long Arm from the dungeon, kind of unique of its archetype. Doom of Chelchis, which is also very strong. SMGs SMGs and bows are pretty much untouched in this buff. They see these as like being kind of the bar that everything else needed to be brought up to, which is good. I think SMGs were the bar. And we'll have a few other buffs that I'll pass it off to Court to mention in just a second. But I want to shout out Mossy real quick and kind of his predictive analysis of these changes. If you go check out Mossy on Twitter, we'll be sure to link his tweet about this in the show notes here. But he did some really nice visualization of kind of where we are at right now as far as primary weapon damage output goes, DPS goes, for sustain just your base average reload all the way up to like bottomless mag. And I think that something you'll notice whenever you look at these two graphs is that well, number one, sidearms were good and they just got a massive bump. So if you are inside their range, it's going to be hard to argue against that these days. And then also like the parity between a lot of weapons, whenever we look at the post-buff numbers, kind of the absolute difference between the lowest and the highest output for a lot of these weapons shrunk a good amount. So kind of seeing the bands come together in some ways is really good to see. And I think that is kind of what Chris was getting at when he talks about the fact that they wanted to bring the parity between weapons a lot closer to each other. And I'm going to say, I think that this update is going to succeed in that. And it feels really good to see, some of these other options on the table, kind of early thoughts. Court and Impetus, what are you guys thinking here?
Looks really good. I think for me has always been pulses and hand cannons needed the most kind of uplift out of everything. I know, we meme and we kind of talk about sidearms, kind of not really interested in sidearms. I know Saint and I, we really love using Brigand's Law, but compared to other weapons, they're not. Sidearms aren't that good. But I mean, looking at these this bar chart from Mossy does look very interesting in terms of where sidearms are positioning themselves after this buff. But yeah, no, it remains to be seen. I think early impressions are, will 20% be good for pulses and hand cannons? I mean, out of all the ones that you listed there, Saint, it's Outbreak Perfected's always been a really solid choice for a pulse rifle. I don't use Revision 0 a lot, but I know it's pretty useful. It has utility. But, Graviton Lance is one of my kind of OG favorites. And 20%? Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Impetus?
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt about it. The number buff here has put sidearms past submachine guns when we're looking at the damage, which is interesting because SMGs have just not had a lot of competition prior to this change within their intended range band. In fact, for some of the rangier SMGs, you were really, far surpassing auto rifles, which is counterintuitive. So it'll be interesting to see for some of our less rangy submachine guns if swapping over to a sidearm is a better option, or rather not. Auto rifles will now have a little bit more breathing room within their intended ranges, even for some of those autos that don't have as much range like the rapid fires. So yeah, very much wait and see. It'll be interesting. You know, I'll definitely try out sidearms. Again, I don't like engaging in their optimal distances, especially in the higher difficulty stuff. But you know, if it's just busting one out for doing a regular dungeon or a raid, and you know, it's a smaller engagement space, yeah, I'll give it a shot. We shall see. We shall see. So. Court, you want to hit us with the weapon archetype changes that we've got?
Yeah, so it's just some specific examples. They listed the Ikelos SMG. The recoil will now be in line with other aggressive frame SMGs. It kind of had its own hidden kind of Zen moment kind of thing, where it was very interesting. Aggressive SMGs are also getting a larger change in Season 21. So again, this is more for a kind of PvP environment, but it does affect PvE, so it'd be important to kind of shout this out. I think the three of us, we still run, you know, Volt Shot Ikelos SMG, so it will be interesting to see how this kind of pairs in comparison to other aggressive and other frame SMGs. Trace rifles, again, this is more kind of focused on PvP, but it does affect our environment as well. Base damage increased by 4%, but they've also reduced the precision hit multiplier from 1.4x to 1.35x. So put that in perspective, that's precision damage goes from 16.8 to 16.9. So that's a combination of the base damage increase plus the malice that you're getting from the reduced precision hits. So it is still a net gain, regardless if it's 0.1. And they've also increased the effectiveness of stability at reduced flinch by 10% at 100 stat. And of course, that scales down at lower values. Sniper rifles, something that we are a little bit more interested in, kind of affects our sandbox. They've just kind of talked about how rapid fire frame sniper rifles have took kind of they've sort of long struggled to find a place in both sandboxes. In PvP, their inability to kill in two body shots puts them on an even footing with other snipers, and in PvE, their fast RPM but kind of low standard inventory sizes mean you constantly feel low on ammo. I certainly feel like that. I would probably run rapid fires a lot more often if I didn't run out all the time. So they are fixing that, or they're kind of buffing that. Rapid fire frame snipers will have reduced recoil by 50%, 50, and they're increasing the total ammunition, which is magazine plus reserves, by 30. That's 30%. So highlights, we have covered both of these. That's the Ikelos Sniper with overflow. It's craftable, remember, and the Urakanji, which is the sniper that we covered last week. So very interesting ones. Real quick, do you guys have any comments? I think more so on the sniper rifle.
Excited to see where it goes. Again, as I've harped on before, there are a lot of kinetic sniper rifles in the game, including several rapid fire options. So we'll see if some of those maybe get refresh perk pools, because a few of them are in raids. And then, yeah, very, very happy that my enhanced overflow Ikelos Sniper is going to be doing quite well here. Because, yeah, it could be a little bit hard to hit crits due to that recoil. So very excited to see how this plays out.
Yeah, they've just been out of the meta for so long. It's nice to see a bit of a buff. And it's like the same thing as scout rifles, I think, where they're like, we don't want to go too far because then you can just like sit in the back and just damage like super easily from really far away. But they really did need like a little bit of a buff. So happy to see any kind of buff to them.
Mm-hmm.
So later on, they did mention that all snipers will get a 10% PvE buff in the future. So season 21, just to kind of pair that with the rapid fire frame sniper buff as well. It'll be very interesting to see how that aligns. We'll obviously have our thoughts in the future when it comes to that. Just to round things off with the TWAB here, just some specific examples. We've got the exotic weapons Tarba, which has been, pretty bit of a tearaway in PvP. But again, this does affect PvE things with Ravenous Beast energy generated when taking damage has been reduced from 3 to 1%, and they have reduced the zoom from 16 to 15. Revision 0, fourth time's the charm, will now reset when entering Hunter's Trace. This was more so to prevent the issue of firing a single shot while in Hunter's Trace and being forcibly returned to pulse rifle mode when fourth time's the charm activates. They've also increased the PvE damage of Hunter's Trace rounds by 25%, and they've increased the PvE damage of the Hake heavy burst rounds by 75%. Chris mentions here this will now make it more of a trade-off when choosing between the origin perks, either dealing more damage in the primary mode but charging Hunter's Trace more slowly, or dealing less damage but charging the bonus shots more quickly. So more of a trade-off here. Very interesting to see how this places after the changes, plus the pulse rifle buff that it's also getting. Very interesting. Just to kind of finish off things, so Season 21 launch, so everything else that we've been talking about, that is all coming in the mid-season update. These changes are coming in Season 21, so by the time this podcast comes out, we've got another 6-7 weeks left before Season 21 launches. They are implementing a sweeping rework of weapon hipfire reticles to better display useful information to players. That's your act state, aim assist, charge state, exotic perk state, etc., etc. The TWAB has a very cool little video displaying some of these changes. For very quick thoughts from me, it looks really cool. It looks really nice. I think I've always had my biggest complaint with, the buff and debuff UI screen, as it's always crowded with a bunch of buffs. So this doesn't solve that issue. It does take a little bit of the pressure off of how many stacks of Memento Mori do I have, and it will show you that. You've got your 6 little circles that show how many stacks of that damage buff you have, which would maybe be otherwise clogged up in the buff and UI, the buff and debuff UI screen. They talked about obviously the aggressive frame SMG nerf here. We're getting the sniper rifle damage 10% PvE buff, and they have buffs / adjustments to more than a dozen exotic weapons, including Graviton Lance and Salvation's Grip.
Ooh.
Real quick thoughts, Impetus, Saint?
Impetus, you go ahead, man.
Yeah, excited for buffs and adjustments to the exotic weapons. Really, that's what's standing out to me there. I feel like the last, I can't remember how many different passes they've made, batches of exotic weapons that they've gone over really well. A lot of those, of course, have been adding in subclass viability and stuff. So, if we get maybe a few more catalysts or just a few more tweaks to various exotic perks so that we can bring more stuff into a relevant play space, I'm all for it.
Revision 0 is going to hit like an absolute truck whenever this buff goes through. That was like a weapon that I think came out and had like a decent PvE offering, so to say, but the damage just wasn't quite there for it to like justify the exotic slot, I think was kind of the consensus. And that is no longer the case. This thing, I think, is poised to be an absolute monster in PvE and give Outbreak, which I think would be, honestly, like, I know, Court, you shouted that one out, but I think Outbreak is going to be incredibly strong, and I think that Revision 0 is also going to be just very strong. And I cannot wait to use that and see with the Hunter's Trace 25% buff on top of all the pulse rifle buffs and heavy burst buff. If I'm like one-shotting down some barriers up until like kind of what tier of content is that going to work until and stuff like that. I think it's going to be a pretty tough competition between Revision 0 and Outbreak, and I'm really like genuinely excited to like use these weapons whenever this patch hits. And like Ace of Spades is another weapon that like Sunshot. I like really enjoy using both of those weapons. And now I'm not like a detriment to my team when I'm using those weapons. And that feels real cool. I'm stoked about that. Yeah.
You made the comparison between Revision 0 and Outbreak Perfected. One thing is Outbreak Perfected was really good this season because of Pulse Anti-Barrier. Not so much season after. If we don't have Pulse Anti-Barrier again, because Revision Zero already has it. It's got it intrinsically.
Yeah, that's a great point.
To be honest, I do keep forgetting it has barrier capability intrinsically baked in. So, yeah, like I think, we real quickly just talking about like comparison between Arbalest versus Wishender, and now probably Revision Zero having a little kind of bite out of the big kind of barrier pie here, because you don't tend to, Arbalest is still really powerful, it's still really good, but Wishender and probably now Revision Zero with all these really high damage buffs, very interesting where the top slot, your kinetic slot, where all these weapons kind of, I would love to see the usage rates in like GMs compared to Wishender, Arbalest, and Revision Zero, just to see what weapons being used more often. And
yeah, that's a great point, because Wishender was definitely like my go-to for the past like little bit on anti-barrier, just like kind of standardly. But yeah, we shall see.
All right, is it time to get into the Root of Nightmares?
Yes,
Impetus, you want to break
go.
down our loot table before we get into all our loot and stuff?
Yeah, let's talk about what you're going to be playing for here, folks. So we have 4 encounters in Root of Nightmares. Got 6 total weapons that can drop. It is 2 primaries, 2 specials, 2 heavies, as well as your raid armor set. So in the first encounter, that is called Cataclysm, you can get on the weapon side one of 3 options. Nessa's Ablation, which is a void pinpoint slug shotgun. Briar's Contempt, the Solar Aggressive, that's the 3 burst, linear fusion rifle. Or Caraxus's Distress, which is a strand rapid fire heavy grenade launcher. On the armor side, you can get either chest, arms, or helmet. In the second encounter, which is called Scission, you can get Michael's Reverence, that is the strand rapid fire sidearm, Nessa's Ablation, Akazia's Rejection, that is a solar trace rifle, or Caraxus's Distress, and on the armor side it is chest, arms, or legs. The third encounter is called Macrocosm. You can get Michael's Reverence, Rufus's Fury, which is our strand rapid fire auto rifle, Akazia's Rejection, or Caraxus's Distress, and then on the armor side that is chest, class item, and legs. In the fourth and final encounter, which is simply titled Nezrak, spoilers, you can get any weapon from the previous encounters, that would be all 6 of them. On the armor side it is helmet, class item, or legs, and then of course a chance for the exotic weapon to drop, which is called Conditional Finality. It is a stasis / solar double barrel shotgun. Very excited. We will be doing a breakdown of that. All 3 of us hosts do have it, so we can talk about it in some detail. Additionally, and this is very, very cool, Root of Nightmares is the first raid to also feature triumphs that can increase the drop chance of Conditional Finality. You want to make sure that if you earn these specific triumphs during the course of your raid run, you claim them before the final encounter ends, so that you do actually get that. If you look at the triumphs for the raid under the relevant section, you will see a little exotic engram symbol, which will tell you that that triumph does increase your chances of getting the drop for Conditional Finality. So very excited for that. We had seen this system first debuted back in Duality, so very, very happy to see this make its way over to raids at last. As a reminder, Root of Nightmares is not currently farmable. You have 3 chances every week. That is 1 per character. Root of Nightmares is scheduled to enter the raid rotator in Season 22. That would be the season when we get a reprised raid, where you will be able to farm it when it is the weekly featured raid. And of course, the master loot pool, as this does have a master difficulty, is separate to the normal loot pool. So you can run that twice per character for an adept drop that will not hurt your chances of doing the challenge, which is necessary to get that extra chest to spawn on normal difficulty. So that is what you are going to be rating for. I just realized that I was saying the trace rifle is called Akazia's Rejection. It's actually Akazia's Dejection. Still very negative, but an important distinction to make here. We have some modifiers we're going to go over here. This is going to pertain to the master difficulty of the raid, as that just came out here. We're just going to be going through these real quick. We're not entirely sure how this will change week to week and or season to season, so we will be speaking for the Season 20 kind of as of situation here. You do have your standard master modifiers, that is the extra champions, extra shields, and your maximum effective level is capped at 1820. You do have your champions, of course. There are the two types here that pertain to Cabal enemies. We have barriers. They are present on the normal mode and the master mode, and then unstoppables, which pertain only to the master mode. We do have overcharged weapons here. This is a new thing that we've got to deal with this season here. You will have weapon overcharges from the season artifact that can be active in this activity. Kinetic weapons do increased damage when your subclass element matches an active surge. Again, we'll be going all over this shortly, of course, and again, when we are getting ready for Grandmasters here. That damage increase for your overcharged weapons is 25%. In Season 20, the relevant seasonal artifact mod is Origin Hones. That pertains to the Ambush, Nanotech Tracer Rockets, Noble Deeds, and Tech's Balanced Stock Origin traits. If you have a weapon with any of those, they will become overcharged. That is how that artifact perk works. Additionally, we do have our anti-champion mods that will also help with overcharging your weapons for Season 20. That is going to be Anti-Barrier Pulse, Anti-Barrier Sidearm, Overload Auto SMG, Overload Bow, Overload Sword, Unstoppable Scout, and Unstoppable Glaive. Additionally, I know, a lot of information to keep track of. A curated / specific overcharged weapon is active. Again, at the time of this recording, it is Shotgun, but this may be a little bit different in a future week or season. We are not sure. Those are all of the weapons here. Court, what do we have for our surges? What's going on there?
So the two surges, which I think are, at least the Strand one is static. The Solar Surge may swap out, but we've got Solar and Strand surges. So all outgoing Solar damage or Strand damage. Now that could be Solar or Strand weapons and Solar or Strand abilities. It's just any outgoing damage is increased by 25%. So align your subclass to be either Solar or Strand to also increase your kinetic damage. Again, Impetus mentioned there, we're not going to go through every weapon, but I think next episode we'll talk about this in more detail. But just to give you a very quick overview, we're talking about Outbreak Perfected, Revision 0, Wishender, Osteo, Hawkmoon, Arbalest, Bastion, Izanagi's, Witherhoard, Heritage, Succession, Submission, Peace of Mind. Weapons like that, those are all the sort of kinetic weapons that will get that 25% buff as long as you align your subclass to be either Solar or Strand or whichever the element that's the current element surge of that particular week. As a reminder, overcharged and surge modifiers from the activity do not stack together. You'll get the benefit from the 25% increase only once, regardless if you double up. So for example, we have Auto SMG Overload this season. Use your Quicksilver Storm, which has Strand. So you might be thinking, oh, I can pair the Overload SMG plus the Strand Surge to get 25% times 25%. It doesn't work like that. You'll just get it once. We've mentioned this before in previous episodes prior to Lightfall. There are no threat modifiers active in the Master Raid. Threat is when the combatants deal extra damage to you, but that is not present on Master Raids. In terms of champions, you will see a lot more of these in the Master version, but you will see Barrier in the normal. Appearance-wise, Encounter 1, an additional barrier champion spawns in defeating the duo Scions. You'll be dealing with a lot more on Master when you're killing those duo Scions in the bubble. In Encounter 2, the Unstoppable champion also accompanies a barrier champion. Encounter 3, this is Master only. It replaces the Colossus mini-boss. That's the Terrestrial Lieutenant. It's where you get the planet buff. And Encounter 4, again, Master only, it replaces the Colossus mini-boss. Again, spawn left, middle, and right. In terms of mods this season, we've obviously got Pulse Rifle and Sidearm. Exotics, we've got Revision 0, Wishender, Ariana's Vow, Arbalest, The Lament, and Titans have their Void, Second Chance, gauntlet for their void shield throw. We, of course, have new ways to stun champions for the sandbox. We've got Solar Radiant, we've got Void Volatile rounds, and we've got Strand Unraveling rounds. For Unstoppables, again, this is just pertaining to the Master version. They appear in Counter 2. Again, they spawn with the Barrier Champion, so you'll have 2 champions to deal with when at the end of each section of Encounter 2. For mods, we've got Scout and Glaive. Exotics, we've got Devil's Ruin, Malfeasance, Bastion, Leviathan's Breath, and Hunters have their Weighty Throwing Knife, Solar, Athros's Embrace. Again, Unstoppables also can be stunned via the following. That's Arc Blind, Solar Ignition, Stasis Freeze into Shatter, and we have Strand Suspend as well. We'll be talking about more kind of in detail how and where and the sort of priority rules of champion mods and how they kind of line up. We'll talk about that next week when we do our kind of comprehensive breakdown, sort of preamble to our Grandmaster breakdowns. So prepare for that. And finally, I'll just cover the shields here. We will be seeing Solar. You'll also be seeing the sort of, I suppose they are kind of a type of shield, but it's the, when some of the Cabal enemies drop their little kind of shield generator, you'll see that. It's not technically an element, it's just a kind of generic shield, but you will see that, so just take that in mind. That will be kind of amplifying the combatants by applying shield kind of periodically. And also we do see void shields in the master mode. Saint, what can you say about some kind of noteworthy and special enemies that will be accompanying?
Yep, in the first encounter, we've got a couple. We have our boss tier tormentors, the imprints of Nezarec, right, or all the named tormentors. So they cannot be frozen, blinded, or suspended. We also have Bubble Scions in the first encounter. If you've ever spent any time on the Leviathan in Season of the Haunted or prior to that, you'll be very familiar with these. You need to be inside the bubble to punch them. And then we have some Colossus, kind of mini boss tier Colossus in encounters 2, 3, and 4. And those will all be replaced by barriers in the master version of this raid in encounters 2, 3, and 4. Okay, let's jump in to our first encounter here. Something we'll mention again off the bat, we're going to link some maps in the episode description if you want a visual for while you're going through these encounters. And we're not going to be describing, specific spawn points or chain node points or anything like that. We're really going to be focusing on builds that we used that have worked well for us, weapons that worked well for us, just general like tips and good to know things that can help you run through this raid. Probably even if you've been through it a few times already. So starting off with the encounter 1, this is all, we all went through the challenge and master mode this week, so this is kind of fresh in our mind, and we'll be talking about a few things that are particularly going to help you with that, especially this first one off the bat, which is something that Court mentioned to us that I think it really helped us get through our challenge run, which is essentially saving or banking a tormentor into the next phase, and you can give your team a much longer time just from the jump. This is especially helpful in the first couple of phases, like the first couple of chains of nodes here. It's really easy to complete these before you need to kill that first tormentor. So let's say you complete the first chain, your tormentor's up, he's down to about half health, just leave him. The actual white mechanic timer will not show up, or will go away for a moment here, and then when it shows back up, it's going to reset to 30 seconds, but you can max that out at about 45 seconds, I believe. So if you're kind of coordinating...
It does go higher. If you can really stagger them and nuke them, you can get over a minute. I've seen that.
Okay.
Yep.
But yeah, so moral of the story here is you finish your chain, don't kill the initial tormentor, just wait on it. Bring them down to low health, a third or below, and then as soon as that next phase starts, just nuke the tormentor and burn down their last like little quarter of health. To Core's point, I think you're gonna start for 30 seconds, and you could immediately be up to like 45 or 50 seconds when you're starting the phase, and then you'll have more scions popping up, and you'll have the chance to get another one, but this is just a really easy way, especially if you're doing the challenge mode where you need to only kill the tormentor when you have the light buff. You can prime them up, have somebody after they get the buff initially, before they even start the chain, just kill the Tormentor, and the second person is there waiting just to get the chain going. And, like we said, they've got that extra 15, 20 seconds, which is going to be really nice, especially in those latter chains that get a little bit long. Remember that Tormentors are precision damage. They really benefit from focusing on precision damage, breaking their shoulders, and then focusing on the chest is going to be huge here. When we think about weapons and our loadouts here, if you're one of the couple of runners, or if you're doing one runner, I think two runners is a great strat here. If you can manage the 4 players dealing with your Tormentors there, you really want to be focused on mobility and speed, right? On my Titan, I typically run like tier 2 or 3 mobility because it's just not a priority, but you can really easily make up for that running a lightweight frame weapon, speed booster if you're on an art class. I really like to use an eager edge sword. I really like to use shield bash, or any kind of shoulder charge ability is going to just allow you to move around really quickly. And then something that you're going to be able to just spray with, trace rifle, or like a lightweight SMG, you're going to be really good for just hitting those orbs really easily. And on your ad clears, you've got Wither Horde, Osteo, Trinity Ghoul, Risk Runner. Focusing on things, elemental perks like Incandescent and Volt Shot are going to be really good for controlling those big groups of Cabal. Even Reservoir Burst or AoE weapons are going to be solid here. If you are the runner, and you're also going to need to be focusing on killing the Tormentors, having something that can deal out a lot of burst damage pretty quickly, that is going to align, let's say you're on a Strand Titan or a Solar Titan, you can capitalize on something like Izanagi's Burden or Arbalest. And, even Outbreak is pretty solid for dealing with the barriers and those guys and just dealing out some solid damage really quickly. Xenophage is going to benefit from the Solar Overcharge. 1K Voices is kind of a explosive, but does a lot of damage. And then even something that is, as long as it's benefiting from your Overcharge, Retrofit Escapade, for example, has Ambush, which is going to allow it to benefit from Overcharge, right? Which is going to give you that buff, which is going to be really nice. If you've got something like Target Lock for dealing out some damage. I think that's, if you're doing the challenge, focus on a balance of maybe an eager edge sword plus like Izanagi's Burden or something like that is going to allow you to have kind of a balance. Or if you just want to use your like class abilities like Arc Dash and Shoulder Charge and Shield Bash, and then use a heavy weapon to deal with the Tormentors, just kind of keep that balance in mind. All right, we're looking at specific classes. Court, what do you got for the Hunters? Anything specific here?
So the first time I was running it, and it was actually working really well, I was using 1000 Voices and Blade Barrage. So pair that with Ember of Ashes, and you'll get that guaranteed ignition trigger with 1000 Voices, as long as you kind of spray the Tormentor completely with 1K. And obviously, at the time we were doing it, it was Solar Surge, so I was getting that 25%. That's why I was running 1000 Voices. But you could run a Sleeper Simulant, again, if it's Solar Surge. It's a nice precision damage weapon. It can do some quite kind of burst damage as well. But yeah, for Tormentors, if you're on the Tormentor Killer team, Blade Barrage, Gathering Storm, Mobius Quiver. And if you're ad clear, I think Hunters are really great at kind of controlling or kind of ad clear options with Arc Staff, Deadfall's Tether, Silence and Squall, and Silk Strike. Back to you, Saint. What's the Titans all about?
I think Solar can like really have its place. Strand is obviously buffed up if you want to go to that Suspend focus build, especially if you're on the ad clear team. I think that Suspend focus build is going to be incredibly strong because you're just kind of shutting down the movement of everything around you. You've got everything suspended up, and you're gaining your not overshield, your Woven Mail. Yeah, thank you, Woven Mail, and it's just incredibly strong. Conditional Finality and Izanagi's Burden are both really good for dealing quick damage to the Tormentor. Conditional Finality, if you don't want to get super close, that's fine. I get it. They're a little scary, right? They'll kill you pretty quickly. Bubble is still good, honestly, even if you're running on Master, especially if you're actually a runner. I think that one of the reasons I like that is because if I'm a runner, I either want to be using Thunder Crash or Bubble pretty much, because I don't want to be caught in a roaming super, because that's going to kind of interfere with your running, and that's just like not a good scenario to put yourself in. Thunder Crash is not buffed up by an overcharge, but it's still incredibly strong with Curious if you're looking to go offensive, Bubble for defensive, and then yeah, I mean, Hollow Denial and Retrofit Escapade are both very strong. Hollow Denial kind of supports that offensive Bulwark build, which is really strong. Alternatively, something like a blinding grenade launcher, and an other half to like move around, and then the blinding GL is allowing you to kind of crowd control the enemies that are nearby you without focusing on them very much at all, and allowing your ad clear teammates to deal with that. And I think that's something that's going to come up more in the raid, but especially on Master, if you're trying to just run as fast as possible, just blinding them and then eager edging over there is a great way to ensure that you're going to be able to move like very quickly, but you're not going to have to deal with the enemies. And that's good for normal mode too. Not a ton of damage output there, so probably would recommend going like Thunder Crash if you're going to go blinding GL and other half to be going over there. Impetus, Warlocks, what's going on?
Yeah, so for Warlocks, during my day one, I was doing the running, and I was on Dawnblade, of course, because of Icarus Dash helping me get to the plates quicker, and that was working out quite well until I got to some of the later rotations where there's an element of verticality. Warlocks typically struggle with this, of course. Icarus Dash does not go up. So in that point, I swapped over to Strand and to the Grapple, and I've had a lot of success. This is true for all three classes. If you are doing running, Grapple can get you up or down to a plate, of course, quickly. So it does take a little bit more skill, of course. You probably want to be pretty familiar with how that works. But once you get it down, you can get to pretty much anywhere in this encounter really quickly here. So that's my recommendation for runners. It's fine to do Icarus Dash. You just need to be aware, of course, if you're the only runner, if you are one of two runners in those later ones, especially that final link, there's some plates that are above and below quite a bit here, so you want to make sure that you're positioning yourself so that you're not running low on time and that you can link the chain quickly here. If you're on ad clear and you're just doing the normal difficulty of the raid, I think Stasis, Strand, or Arc builds are going to shred here. Those really excel on the ad clear side. On the master mode, of course, I was on solar. I was putting down wells whenever I had that super up, just giving my fire team an ability to kind of get a little bit of a breather because there's a lot going on there. And then I was also on Strand. Again, we've got a lot of threadlings going around here, so you could swap that out for the suspend grenade, because I do think that's a much better option here. Just getting a lot of those enemies up in the air, out of your hair for just a moment, kind of regrouping. This isn't quite the best place for threadlings. It can be quite strong, but again, the enemies, these Cabal do have jetpacks, so they jump up into the air as they're moving around. They don't run from one area to the other, so that can pose a challenge for threadlings. Just something to be aware of here. You're, of course, welcome to run those if you want to go chase down some enemies. You can cast your Rift next to a bunch of enemies. It's just something to be aware of. But yeah, Strand or Solar for Master difficulty will give you a lot of great options, both for running and for ad clear. One last thing I wanted to say in regards to the backpacks that the Cabal have that when they drop down provide that overshield. Chain Reaction, Reservoir Burst, and Xenophage are excellent. If you kill an enemy with that explosion, it will also destroy the backpack, so you don't even have to worry about follow-up shots to pop that. So that's going to be a really, really strong option there. Explosive damage just gets rid of the entire problem all at once, doesn't lead to more problems down the line there. So yeah, definitely recommend those options for all types of enemies, as well as also against the Tormentors in particular. All right, anything else to talk about for Encounter 1, or are we good to move on to Encounter 2?
Good.
All right, let's move on to this. This is where we have a little bit more effort in the running. There's a number of different strategies to do that. One that we've kind of really loved to approach is having 4 runners total. You'll have 2 on each side, the light and the dark side here. One of those 2 on each side is going to be the home runner. So they stay on that side and shoot the relevant orbs, and then you have the jumper is the other runner that's going to be crossing the gap to go get the plate on the other side. It does require a lot of very efficient communication. I think it's probably a good thing to call out the name or call out the name of the buff either the name of the player or the name of the buff, just to let people know, and then have the 2 remaining people on your raid team that are doing ad clear just kind of try and stay silent, or call out whenever the champion spawns at the end of that link there, because there's going to be a lot of talking. But this is a very fast strategy, and again, you're on a timer here for all 3 floors here, so going fast is a bit of a priority. You will probably want to get familiar with the layout here, but again, having one person that's only covering the plates on one side, and then having someone who's just jumping across to get the other side, does cut down on the total number of plates that you're looking for. So I think that's a pretty safe way to introduce people to the mechanic, to how to do this to progress through the encounter here, but it will require a lot of calling out to folks here. So just something to be aware of. But again, it's all about prioritizing your timing so that you have as much time as possible in case a buff runs out, or you don't make the jump, or a champion gets you at the very end, as those things happen. So when we're thinking about our recommended weapons here, again, you're going to have most of your fire team doing some running, so it's going to put a bit of a pressure on the 2 people, 1 per side, that will be doing ad clear, but it's not too awful. There are not as many enemies in this as there were in the first encounter here. Blinding grenade launcher is going to be huge. Void LMGs, again, this season are so strong here. We've got Commemoration, Corrective Measure, or Retrofit Escapade, really tying into a Volatile Flow, that artifact mod. It's going to be so strong. But really, outside of other seasons, you've got other LMGs that are just going to shred through these enemies with a lot of ease. Again, if you are someone who's going to be moving around, if you're jumping across lightweight weapons like Funnel Web, Submission, going to be great for just getting that movement boost. And of course, any sword with the Eager Edge perk to help moving around quickly if you are a runner here. Court, I'm going to pass it back to you unless either one of you have some other recommended weapons. Otherwise, we'll go into our class recommendations here.
Last thing I mentioned is just Wave Splitter. It's so much fun to use in this encounter. If you're using a machine gun, you can kind of, like, my typical thing is we can use a Commemoration with Reconstruction and Killing Tally, and then I just swap over to whenever I burn through my 130 bullets that I have in the mag, which is a totally cool amount, I will just swap over to Wave Splitter and just burn through targets. And that thing is especially strong this season, just because of the way that its key perk works and all that stuff. It's just a lot of fun too. If you're kind of looking to mix things up, highly recommend trying out Wave Splitter just to spice things up a little bit, capitalize on the mods for the season.
Very good recommendation. Saint is trying to win my heart by saying Wave Splitter. It's my favorite trade rifle there you're calling out. Yes, for my hunter friends, if you're doing the sort of ad clear control, again, much like Encounter 1, we've got Arc Staff, we've got Deadfall Tether, Silence and Squall, and Silk Strike. Those 2 are very good at controlling the amount of ads that spawn, and also that Freeze and Suspend can be used against those shielded enemies. If you don't have the buff at the time, or if you're doing the Encounter Triumph, not the challenge, we don't exactly know what the challenge is yet, but the Encounter Triumph, where you have to keep all the shielded guys up until all the dots have been connected, essentially. This is a very good way, because you can freeze them, you can suspend them, just keep them out the way. I think Hunter grappling, a lot of fun here. I think you've got a lot more kind of safety nets compared to the other classes. If you are doing the running, if you're going back and forth, I know from experience, I'm not trying to look down at either Titans or Warlocks, but from experience of using those classes with those bumpers to cast you off to the next realm, you either go really high up or you get thrown into the abyss, which is very annoying if you're on a Warlock class, which, they don't have that intrinsic kind of jumping ability when they are using their jump ability, whereas Hunters have that kind of safety net, and then you can use grappling just to give you that more kind of movement. So I think I don't want to necessarily recommend, and I don't want to set a precedence of recommending a particular subclass to do a particular role, but if you are struggling with the bumpers that sends you back and forth or throughout the rest of the raid, I think kind of promoting the hunters to do that running job would be a good shout out. Again, I don't want to set a precedence of saying, yeah, have all your hunters always doing the running, because that isn't really a fair assessment. They can be a bit buggy, they can be a bit glitchy. I think the biggest recommendation, hint, when it comes to those bumpers is, as you're firing the little node that activates the bumper, start moving backwards into the bumper. It doesn't work 100% of the time, but it is, for me, it's been most kind of consistent way. And obviously, it is affected by your frames. So if you want to keep your frames below 80, I think you should be fine. But hopefully in the future, that's something that they can iron out. But that is my recommendations and suggestions for the hunters. Saint, what can you say about our Titan friends?
Titans, if you want to feel like a hunter, you can use catapult lift. This is something that is not popular. People use strafe lift. Some people use high lift. I don't see catapult lift like hardly at all. But it is really nice for getting like that feeling of like almost having a double jump like the hunter, right? If you're getting thrown over there and you're a little bit low and you hit that catapult lift, it's like, almost always is going to be enough to make sure that you make it up that ledge. And that's been a great tool for me as I do a lot of the kind of away runner, jumping across the chasm, taking those launchers, as Cord was describing. Yeah, you've also got like Shield Bash and Eager Edge if you want to be moving like really fast. And again, I like Bubble on like normal mode because I can just like drop the bubble near my teammates and then just continue to run, and I'm never like stuck in a super. Master, I'm going Strand, just because of your ability to like, your Abate Leap build like that I talked about a few episodes ago, again, is just like super strong here. And you can also use Grapple if you want like that little extra safety for going over the lifts. And you can use your Barricade and like your Blinding Nades to like control the enemies and, just suspending up, like, even though Suspend is not like an all champion counter, it kind of is like an all champion types counter, because being able to just suspend up that barrier or whatever the champion is always just like super strong and allows you to hit super easy crits. Suspending them up and then just like beaming them with a target lock machine gun is just absolutely a great combo. Warlocks, what's going on?
What is going on with the Warlocks, man? We can't jump, we can't look up, apparently. It's just, we're in shambles. Or are we? If you are running, again, I think Solar is going to be helpful here. The grapple option on Strain is going to be nice, but again, if you're struggling with the bumpers when you're going from floor to floor, it kind of requires a really quick reaction time on your part to correct, if that's even an option. Again, you could go completely to the side, which has happened to me before. So it's just one of those things you kind of have to deal with. But once you're on a side, again, Icarus Dash can be really helpful for just getting there quickly. Timing is of the essence here. I haven't really brought up this before, but of course there is well skating. If you know how to do that, that is the safest way for Warlocks to cross to the other side. Once you're at a floor, it's not going to do you much good once you're trying to jump up to the next level, but that is an option there for you to skip the bumpers entirely if you know how to do that. So if you are on the ad clear team, and again, if this is normal difficulty, Strand, Stasis, Arc is going to be an excellent option. I'll recommend Strand or Solar for the master difficulty. Wells are always helpful in master content. Just plopping one down, dealing with ads is going to be really nice. And of course, Strand is going to be helpful because you do get the suspend counter to both the Unstoppable Champion and then the Unraveling rounds. If you spec into that for the barrier champions, that can be just an additional thing to have in your back pocket so that those champions aren't any more of a problem than they need to be. So those are our recommendations here for Encounter 2. Again, this is really going to test, I think, the teamwork, a little bit more going on mechanically. The timer is, I think, probably a greater threat than it maybe was in Encounter 1, if you know what you guys are doing. We have our 2 boss fights. They've saved those for the very last 2 encounters here, so we'll move on to Encounter 3. This is Macrocosm. Saint, what are our recommended methods or easiest methods here for this one?
Yeah, the first thing I'll say is that I think this is an encounter that's gotten a little bit overcomplicated and that can be simplified kind of in its initial guides and then how, we've been running it the last few times. Basically, you have 3 like teams of 2 people. Team 1 and 2 are like the planet movers for top and bottom plates, or the upper platforms and kind of lower platforms when you're looking at the arena. And then Team 3 is just ad clear in the middle. The first thing I'll mention is that like the time it takes you to kill the enemies is, progressing the encounter, right? So this is kind of something that you've seen in raids as far back as like Crown of Sorrow. But the faster you kill these enemies, the faster the encounters are going to progress, and it's just the easier it's going to make it on you in general. So killing the lieutenant and the centurion that spawn should like always be a number one priority, right? And then you get your colossi, I believe, that actually give you the buffs, right, for planetary insight. And yeah, whoever kills that enemy will obviously get the buff, yada yada. Don't forget that you have like a chance to mess up your planet moving off the bat. You can mess it up once and you'll be fine. And then when it comes to the actual planet moving, this is the part that I think like gets a little bit overcomplicated. And there's just like no need to like number these planets or to do anything like that. The method that we've been using is you have your partner, right, so to say, on the platform that's directly across from you. And what you need to do is just make a single call out to your partner based on what you see when you get your buff. And the call out that you should be making is pretty much either left, mid, or right. So, right, when you get your buff, you look up. Some people like to number these planets. I think the easiest way you can do this, like I said, is just to say, hey, like the other day, Court and I, right, are kind of on opposite sides of the arena on the same place. I say, hey, Court, yours is mid. And he would say, all right, Saint, yours is on the right. And like, that's it. You just grab your planet, you run right over to where your partner said, you drop it off, and like, that's the whole thing. And there's no need to say, it's L6 and 5, or whatever, L2 and 6 and R1 and 5. Like, there's just no need for that, and you can really just focus on the one thing that your teammate is saying, and that's all you have to remember. And remembering one teammate saying, okay, yours is mid. Okay, well, you don't really need to put that in a text chat to remember that you need to go to the mid planet on the side that you're going to, and then just having those consistent, partners, right, where you have the top set of platforms are working together and the bottom set of platforms are working together, just to really make that easy. And then, yeah, I guess the last thing I'll mention here is that the flame tank and the boss, similar to a lot of Cabal backpacks and things like that, is an increased damage weak spot. So if you're using precision damage weapons, just aim for his backpack. There's no need to aim for his head. Just go for the backpack like you would the vent crit spot on some of the other Cabal, or like Keitel, right, had the vent crit spot and all that stuff. So no need to number your plates. Aim for the backpack. All right, that's I think the best tips that we can give on this one. Anything else to add, or we can jump into our weapons here, you guys?
What's our tip for the actual damage phase and how the plate buff works, Saint?
Oh yeah, this is another thing that I think is like misconstrued a lot. So whenever you're in the damage phase, you always have 2 of one buff and 1 of the other, and you need to alternate between dark light dark or light dark light. And whenever you pick these buffs up, you'll see them on their screen. You have about 7 seconds. You don't need to stay on the plate. You can go, like, you can use your initial buff for the 7 seconds, step into the plate and step back, and once you've gained that buff, you're good to go. You will retain the buff. You can thunder crash the boss. You can place one well right in the middle of the arena and go left, grab the buff, come back to the well, go right, grab the buff, come back to the well, go mid to the buff, come back to the well. And there's no need to stay on the plates like you would for like Caretaker, so to say, where you need to be on the plate to dealing damage. That is just like not the case here. Also, sorry, I think my cat just knocked over a box in the corner there. I think that was pretty loud, but oh well, dangers of having pets. All right.
All right, I'll kick us off with some recommended weapons. So the actual, we'll just be kind of focusing on the damage in the boss here. When it comes to sort of ad clearing and when you're moving planets, it's typical stuff here. There's a lot of ads that do spawn. Do take in mind when you are on the platforms, scions do spawn at the walls to the left and the right side. So 3 scions do spawn per plate, just to kind of take that into consideration when you are moving things around. But when it comes to the boss fight, I think we'll be recommending burst weapons because of the very short kind of DPS window. So we're looking at things like Izanagi's Burden. We do have explosive light grenade launchers. They do have a place here. Grand Overture, 20 stacks of the missiles. And you've got also Parasite as well. So take those into consideration just for kind of burst weaponry. But you can go down the route of, I know we've been using Thunderlord quite a lot here. It does have a really good job at really tearing down the boss's health. Rockets do have some utility here, but you're focusing on your sort of kind of unique roles like Clown Cartridge or Demolitionist rockets. You can still use your typical explosive light rockets here, but it's overall not as potent. It's not as efficient due to the short damage phases. So, you can only really get 2 rockets off per phase, which is why we are not necessarily recommending rockets unless it's like Clown Cartridge, or if you're doing the sort of star kind of build with Demolitionist, throwing out your fusion grenade, that kind of deal. You can use that. For my hunter friends, again, we're looking at Star Eater scales with Gathering Storm, Blade Barrage, or if you want to go down this route, Marksman Golden Gun. Good damage here, and if you are Radiant, you also get that damage increase with Golden Gun, but it's more so to spawn orbs for your other teammates. That's a very potent build, not necessarily for yourself, but for your teammates. If they are using explosive light grenade launchers, you can only have 6 on most standard uncraftable grenade launchers, or 7 on those that can be crafted, 7 stacks of explosive light. So that's why I'm recommending kind of Golden Gun, just so
can't you make 6 orbs off of that if you hit all the crits?
Yeah, I believe so. Yep. So that's my big recommendation, just if you want to really close up on the damage window. Again, it's a very short damage window, so if you want to be really efficient with your ammo and really efficient with your orb spawning, then this is a way to go. It's not as powerful as Gathering Storm, which I think might be a little bit too overkill because the damage window is shorter than the upkeep of Gathering Storm. So it's either a toss-up between Blade Barrage or Golden Gun. If you want to go down the team route, then I would say Golden Gun. You also have Mobius Quiver Tether. It has its uses. You could spawn 1, stagger, do damage. I think you've just got about enough time to spawn the second tether with the second phase, just to get that 30% debuff, which is always a great thing to have in these damage windows. Saint, what can you say about the Titans with this encounter?
I would say that, Bubble is great if you have no Warlocks, or if you have maybe 1 Warlock and you're concerned about that running out. If you have a Warlock, there's just no need to run Bubble, because you can put a well, if you time it just right, you can put 1 singular well right in the middle and do all 3 plates. If you're like right on the queue there. You can use Curious Thunder Crash, because like going back to the point of you can step off the plate with the buff as soon as the DPS phase starts. I'm probably going to Thunder Crash and then jump backwards and try to get off a couple rockets. To Court's point, it's pretty much either been like a Wendigo, autoing explosive light roll, or I'm using Burden and my Fuel Prep Clown on my rocket launcher. So I'm like Burden shot, reload, swap over to my rocket launcher that I have like prepped by like before I rally, I like shoot off a rocket and then reload 2 in the mag and then rally to the flag. Big brain plays here. And then so you're like Burden, reload, 2 rockets, Burden, and then you should go to the next thing, reload your Izanagi's Burden, reload your rocket, repick up your buff, and you can do the same combo again. If you want to just go like a little bit easier, and you do have like a lot of ores being generated, then you can pretty much just burden the backpack, swap to your grenade launcher, get off a full stack of 6 explosive light shots, try to grab some orbs, go to, maybe you do one more burden shot and then go to your next plate. But yeah, pretty much go Curus, Thunder Crash, because you're going to deal out a lot of chunk damage. And like as you jump backwards, because you still have that buff, you can be hitting some grenade launcher shots, like as you're on your way back to the plate, so to say, jumping backwards. Just like try to start from the outside of the plate so you don't immediately Thunder Crash and have your teammates like shoot you in the back with their rocket launcher. Not that I've ever done that to anybody, but just theoretically, if that were to happen, it's a good thing to kind of keep your mind on. Go to the outside of the plate and then Thunder Crash from there. And yeah, just try to not kill your teammates. All right. Impetus.
It's a new raid, which means it's another opportunity for Warlocks to become the most valuable person in the fire team with their Well of Radiance super. Recommendation here is going to be Starfire Protocol. Shocking, I know. The big benefit here with Starfire that I want to bring to your attention is the Ashes to Assets mod here. We want to stack that 2 or 3 times on the helmet. This is going to help us when we're outside of the damage phase, getting those grenade kills. Again, you'll probably need to put down an Imp Rift, but this is really ideal to have your Well Warlocks on the ad clear team, so they have as many opportunities to kill enemies with their grenades so they can get that super energy back. If you're really efficient with throwing those grenades out as that wave of enemies is spawning in, you can get those supers back really quickly, which is going to be very helpful, especially on the master difficulty, making sure that you do have a well up for as many damage phases as it takes for you to kill the boss. So definitely recommend Starfire. Again, the actual Starfire engine doesn't quite work out too well during the damage phase for that burst damage, because those 7-second phases are too short to really get things up and running. But again, it's free damage, and it's definitely powerful, especially if you have that demolitionist rocket launcher or that demolitionist heavy grenade launcher. So just keep that in the back of your mind. Look at your options, figure out what you can do. Ideally, you want to have your Well Warlocks on ad clear so they can generate, or they have the opportunity to generate that super energy as much as possible with either their grenades or weapons, whatever it takes here. So, yep, surprise, surprise, it's Well of Radiance is what we're recommending here for the Warlocks. One last thing I'll say, of course, if you do choose to go down the Thunderlord route or a machine gun route, Divinity is going to be a great option here. The lightning strikes, if you have the Thunderlord catalyst hitting the div cage, is really nice as well. Extra damage boost there. So, Warlocks, it's Divinity. We've been running it since it came out. So might as well lean all the way into your support there. In that case, Starfire Protocol not going to be a huge help because you're going to be focusing on Divinity. So you might want to, swap over to something else. Lunafactions would be an excellent option there if you want. Another option you could go down, I haven't personally tried this, but again, it is a very strong thing, very strong synergy. Lumina, Boots of the Assembler, if you want to really give buffs. I think that's only going to be necessary on the master difficulty. Should not be too much of a challenge on the normal boss fight. He doesn't have that much health, and the enemy shouldn't be too lethal if you've got the appropriate resistances. So just another option. Of course, you got many different ways, but it all ties back to Well of Radiance. So that is what I'm recommending for the Warlocks. We have our 4th and final encounter, the final God of Pain himself. Court, what are we recommending here for encounter 4?
So I think out of all the runs that I've done, we have done it so we basically bypass the sort of wipe mechanic. You've got your refuges and kind of safety nets if you want to go down that route, but I think the best experience just to keep things moving is to do, connect the dots and have 2 runners on each side, so the left and right side. There are ways to kind of, if you aren't quick enough to do that, if your runners aren't running kind of your lightweight buffs for weapons or speed booster. I know contest mode, I was one of the runners and I was on Arc because I was using Gathering Storm, but also for the speed booster. So that's what we're kind of recommending. I know, Impetus, we tried to do this on one of the raid nights, and that is to kind of set up a safe space at the start of the encounter. Do you want to kind of go over that real quickly, just in case people want to know?
Yeah, so this is a strategy that I've been trying with my raid group. It's if you have some really quick runners, especially if you're doing two per side, you don't need to do this on the normal difficulty. I think this is probably a strategy that might have a little bit more weight in the master version when things are hitting a little bit harder. But essentially, what you're going to do is you'll have two people start out on each side, but one of the runners on each side is going to get the buff at the very start and then immediately cross over to the other side to the the second plate that gets buffed and create the refuge spot, because that is how you make it. So if I'm the second light runner, I'll have my first run, shoot the light ball, I get the field of light buff, I immediately cross over to the dark side to the plate that the first dark runner would have already activated. I shoot that and I create the refuge. Meanwhile, the second dark runners crossed over to the light side and made a refuge on the light side. The two refuges are going to be up indefinitely until Nezarec starts the white mechanic, when his back starts to flash or strobe out. And you'll have both of them up. They can exist at the same time. Once you know which refuge you will need to go, again, if you're running short on time here, you can have everyone at their earliest convenience just hop over to the appropriate refuge, grab the buff, and then go back to what they're doing. So again, I think this is probably a little bit more helpful on the master difficulty when you're going to have enemies that take a little bit longer to kill if you're not able to get to that fifth and final plate to activate it before the white mechanic goes off. Having this strategy up is just really nice. Again, you can still do your two runners, but it's just immediately setting up your refuges just as a fallback issue to keep alive. But on normal difficulty, once you get the patterns down for the runners having two on each side, you don't really need to worry about this too much.
Yeah, I think that will be a nice shout out for the Master Run, which will be a few weeks from this point for Nezarec Challenge. In terms of recommended builds and weapons here, I think rockets are the kings here. Demo, loading holster, field prep in column 3, and then explosive light, frenzy, clown cartridge, or even a single chill clip user. Pair that with Gallahorn, and Demo is also really a target if you're on Warlock, because as Impetus will probably mention it when we talk about classes and supers. That is a really great rocket launcher to utilize with the star build. In terms of specific rocket launchers, Hothead, that has made a return. The Adept version isn't available anymore, but you can focus at the Vanguard for specifically Hothead. If you don't already have one, you can use the Crucible. You can use Crucible as well for Blowout. I wouldn't particularly recommend Blowout because you have one less base in the inventory. One less rocket because of the base inventory stat. You basically need field prep for that rocket to do well. And even then, I think there's just better options out there. I think Hothead, if you're more interested in doing PvE content and doing Vanguard strikes, then Hothead is your best bet. Alternatively, if you've got a bump in the night as well, Hesitant Vengeance, there are some other great rocket launchers out there. I do have an infographic up on my socials and the Discord server if you want to have a look at all the intricacies of rocket launchers. Thunderlord, again, we're going to recommend here because it's just easy to use and deals out really good damage, even if you have the catalyst as well. Blinding grenade launchers are great for just keeping the enemies at bay while you're on the run, and sort of miscellaneous weapons you've got Izanagi's to pair with your kind of clown cartridge or auto-loading holster rockets, and if someone else is already using Withhorde for the star build, and you've got your high impact snipers are really good for stunning Nezarec if you're one of the two haters. Also say Arbalist as well. You will see in the master mode, you'll see the barrier champions, so you can double up having Arbalist with or for the barrier champions and for utilizing against the Nezarec's chest and his plates just to stun him. Specifically, again, Hunters, this is another kind of Star Eaters build. I mentioned earlier about Arc Speed Boost, Gathering Storm if you're a runner. Alternatively, if you're doing solar if you've got healing grenades, or if you're doing kind of trip mines, etc., you've got Blade Barrage. Titans, what can we expect for this encounter?
I mean, Arc Titan is just like the way, and there's some other encounters, like the first few encounters, Strand can be good, Void can be good, even Solar, right, if you're on Master, depending where you're at. But Arc Titan is just like the way. You can deal so much burst damage with Curus. You're hitting for like, I think, between 400 to 490k, depending on the amount of debuff that you have in your target. I mean, almost 500,000 in burst damage is just undeniable utility for a boss like this, where you can potentially melt him so easily. I also really like Arc Titan because I got my shoulder charge. I've got my dash when I'm doing running. I'm typically one of the runners. And the last thing I'll say is I also tend to hot swap between two loadouts in this encounter. I will start the encounter with my Hoyle build for kind of like the pre-damage. I've got like recuperation better already on my boots, as well as like firepower and heavy-handed on my arms there. So I'm generating orbs and I'm getting a lot of like grenade and utility uptime. Typically as a runner, my move is to shoot off a blinding grenade, throw a arc grenade, a pulse grenade, or a storm grenade in there, let that kind of just deal with the enemies, and then I'm not going to focus on the enemies like pretty much at all after that until our chain is completed. And then once I get to our actual designated plate for damage, I'm just going to hot swap real quick to my Curus loadout with a double arc loader and 3 times arc weapon surge for that 22% buff to usually Thunderlord is what I've been going with, just because it's so easy to use in this situation. And then that's pretty much it. Hit your Thunder Crash. The one thing I will say that you need to be weary of is his suppress attack, right? Whenever he brings that suppression hammer down, that can be really punishing if you just activated your Thunder Crash. So like, wait for him to land and then Thunder Crash, and watch out for that suppress attack, because he can straight up suppress you right out of the Thunder Crash and kill you, which it's happened to me before. I've seen it happen to people a bunch before. It is funny, but also there goes like 100 or 450,000 damage you just lost right there because you mistimed your Thunder Crash, which is like super painful. When you do need to reload, use those 2x arc loaders on your gauntlets, 3 if you can, if you've got the space for it, and you should be able to reload in between his teleport phases. It's like the ideal time if you're getting low. Just hit that reload real quick and then go right back into beaming him and focus on that divinity bubble if you've got that up in your team. But yeah, arc for the movement, arc for the damage, Hoyle in the pre-phase, and then swap to a Curus. Can't recommend setting up those 2 builds enough, because that allows you to have the uptime for your abilities and a lot of health regen while you're just ignoring the ads pretty much, and then all the damage and all the DPS output when you're in that phase.
All right, Warlocks, let's just get it out. It's Starfire. It's always going to be Starfire. We've got nothing but Starfire. Nothing else matters. No, I'm kidding. This is a damage phase long enough for Starfire to work, so that is going to be the recommendation here. Yes, you do have to worry about Nezarec and the suppressing attack. Again, when you're in a fire team of 6 people, it can be kind of... It's a choice to see who can take the anger. Typically, you want to time your well after the suppression attack, or if you see him going into that jump and suppressing, be careful with that. But typically when I've run with well, I've maybe been suppressed out of the super probably 1 to 3 times. The chances that it doesn't affect you is really nice. You can delay it, you can be really early with it, it's your call, but well is still the best option here. You're going to want to have Wither Horde. Make sure you do get that on. And then, because Nezarec is jumping, sidestepping, the fusion grenades are going to be really strong because they do track, right? You gotta just get them kind of in the general area of Nezarec, and they'll latch on and start doing damage. So that's really the huge bonus, just a free bonus to the strength of this build. But yep, demo rocket launcher is going to be huge here for getting the most out of your burst damage here, or of course heavy grenade launcher if you want to go down that route. But I've been using rocket launchers with most success here, so that is the strat for us. Again, if you guys choose to go down the Thunderlord route, Divinity is going to be extremely helpful here. A little bit harder to keep track of them, just because of that jump and the quick movement, the teleport. It can be a little bit glitchy, but it's going to be helpful. And really, again, for Thunderlord, it does not deal as much burst damage. I think it's pretty much a guaranteed 2-phase. If you stick to Thunderlord, but every point of damage counts. So bring that Divinity, help your fire team out. They'll give you all the commendations in the world. Or if you want to try for a 1-phase, it's going to be the Rockets, Izzy swapping, Wither Horde, really going to be helpful there. So those are the strats. Any final tips for Nezarec? I'm trying to think here. Behavior can be a bit rough. Again, void resistance is going to be huge. Absolutely run as much void resistance in your chest piece as you can. It's going to be a lot of void damage. You've got a number of different attacks. The suppression is really annoying to deal with. If you are one of the, I love that you're calling them haters, Corey. That's a great role name for the people that are doing ad clear. It's going to be super efficient. Be aware of those attacks when you do take Nezarec's Hatred, because you don't want Nezarec chasing after your runners, especially on the Master difficulty. So please put on 3 stacks of Void Resistance on the chest piece so that you can stay alive when you don't have the well to fall back on. I believe that is everything that we have to recommend for the raid. What first time clear are we looking for a team going in? Maybe if we assume 3 people are new to the raid, what's an ideal time to shoot for here, fellas?
I'd say, if you have 3 people learning, probably an hour and a half to 2 hours, because it's going to take you a second to just like memorize the chains and stuff like that. It just like, you just got to do it. You just got to practice through the rounds. You've got to wipe 5 times on Nezarec, and eventually like, you're going to just get faster and faster with the chains. And like, that's what's really going to make the difference. And same thing for some of the other encounters, right? You're going to learn those tormentor spawn points. You're going to learn what works as far as like your runners in encounter 2 and all that stuff. I don't know, but you can book through this raid in about 40 minutes. If you really know what's going on, where to go, and you're hitting everything first try, I think.
Just on that point there, Saint, I think it's not something we've kind of spoke about before, but this applies to every raid and dungeon. But I think this raid is a good one to get everyone to do every job. This ranks quite low in terms of mechanics and how many people have to do X amount of jobs, like compared to Vow of the Disciple, which is still kind of the top tier raid. You may not want to bring in a new player with that raid in mind first, but this is definitely one of those raids where let's get you doing some jobs. We don't want you just to be doing ad clear. And yeah, this will set you up for doing stuff like Deepstone Crypt and then doing Vow of the Disciple. So I think that's our biggest recommendation. I think we were talking about this just before we went live, just talking about don't have people just sat in the back and kind of push people to do jobs. I think this is just one example where there will be people who will just keep playing this raid and they'll just stick to ad clear. And there's nothing wrong with that. If they're really good at ad clear, fine. But I think it would be very appreciative if everyone knew every type of job, whether that's running, whether that's ad clear, whether it's kind of baiting Nezarec, or you're moving the planets, or connecting the dots. Just get a nice taste of everything, even if it does mean the raid takes a little bit longer. In terms of like kind of most taxing arena or encounter, I think would be learning the plate locations, as you said, they're sent, and if you are a first time runner, and for repeat clears, hopefully this is fixed in the future. This is one thing that they mentioned was going to be, or they were going to fix the colony bug, which helps you defeat the shielded enemies in encounter 2. But hopefully that gets fixed alongside colony in the future, because that is one thing that it's a very fun encounter, but after doing 3 floors and then the final section bugs out before the clear, and nobody's running colony and nobody knows how to run or to use colony to kind of unbug that encounter, it can be a bit of a pain. So hopefully that gets knocked out. Any final thoughts, opinions, highlights? I think we'll do our kind of overarching vibe feeling in the future. But I will say Encounter 3, lots of fun. I love Encounter 3. just moving the
one
planets
of the
around.
best raid spaces
Yeah.
that we've had to date.
Yeah.
Fantastic option. I do just want to say, again, I know I was recommending if you have the Well Warlock to probably be on ad clear for encounters 3 and 4. If that is the case, you should absolutely be running in encounters 1 and 2. You've got no reason to not do that on the normal difficulty in particular. So if you know that, if you think you could get out of that just by saying, oh, I have Well, I should probably be working on an ad clear to get my super back. No. You run the plates, learn the encounters for 1 and 2, and then eventually down the line, go try it out in doing the mechanic in encounter 3, and then also learning how to run an encounter 4, because it is a lot of fun to get it down. And you should learn how to master mechanics. I mean, they're there for a reason. So absolutely do that. It may be mechanically simple, but it's still a mechanic and it's still part of being a raid fire team. So
I think that's one of the reasons I like Forerunners in Encounter 2. Not only is it like really efficient to have Forerunners, but also if you were like the home base runner on like on one of the sides in Encounter 2, and then somebody's like, all right, now you need to learn how to run the plates at Nezarec. Well, you kind of already know how to do that. And yeah, it just gets more people involved.
All right. Well, this episode's not done. We still have our weapons breakdown. Some real juicers here. I'll kick us off with the origin trait. That is harmonic resonance. So you equipping multiple Root of Nightmares weapons, which includes the exotic shotgun, increases handling, reload speed, as well as increased damage versus Tormentors, Lucent Hive, and enemy players in their super. So if you have one stack that is 2 root weapons equipped, you'll get roughly around 10 handling. We're not entirely sure. It's round about that. You'll get a 0.95x reload duration multiplier, which is about, that's 5% faster. And you'll get a 3.33% damage increase. With 2 stacks, that's all 3 of your slots with root weapons equipped. That's plus 20 handling, plus 20 reload speed, and again, you get that 5% reload duration multiplier. And you get, it's just a smidge under 10%, it's 9.998, but we'll just round it up to say 10% damage increase. As a reminder, all the Root of Nightmare weapons are craftable and also have an adept variant, which can be acquired via the master version. At the time of recording, we're only aware of the sidearm dropping in the first encounter challenge on master mode. These can also be upgraded with enhanced perks in the future. There'll be a future update, and if you do have adepts that have been acquired now, since the start of Master launching, they will be retroactive, so don't worry, you'll still be able to upgrade them in the future. I know the 3 of us, we've got our thoughts and feelings and vibes regarding this change, because there's no double perks anymore. It's just 1 perk that you get on your adept weapon. We'll save that for the future. I know there's been a little bit of displeasure outside the or in the community just regarding this change, but again, we'll talk about this once that system's in place, just so we can get a nice perspective. But onto the weapons. I think I'm going to hand you over to Impetus, who's going to talk about what appears to be his favorite weapon.
Oh gosh, I was worried you're going to stick me with the sidearm. Okay, yeah, no. I can talk about the auto rifle. Yes, so again, we've got 2 primary weapons, 2 special weapons, and 2 heavy weapons here in the raid. The first one we're going to talk about is probably the one that a lot of people have been gravitating towards for PvE. That is Rufus's Fury. That is our strand rapid fire auto rifle firing at 720 rounds per minute. The frame bonus for rapid fires previously was the full auto stuff, but now it is just the 1.8 times reload duration multiplier. That's 20% faster reload speed when your magazine is empty. When we look at our stats versus the archetype peers here, this is a raid weapon. Raid loot typically tends to be quite juicy, and that is definitely the case on the stat side here. We have 34 range on Rufus's Fury. That is the highest by about a margin of 7 points almost, compared to a lot of really, really strong rapid fires, including some that drop from other raids. Got 58 stability. That's the highest. You've got 41 handling. That is second highest. but the highest is 42, which does show up on Reckless Oracle and Sweet Sorrow. You've got 50 reload speed, that is second highest, behind the 55 on Reckless Oracle, and a 56 recoil direction, which is actually third highest, a little bit lower, and the Reckless Oracle only has 59, and that is the highest there. So one of the best auto rifles for its archetype statistically, one of the best auto rifles for its perks, and 720s are the dominant archetype of auto rifles for damage in PvE, so definitely grab a roll if you're able to. Craft your god roll if you are also able to run the raid multiple times. This is going to be this will have a long lifespan in PvE. It is a very, very good weapon here. Looking at our barrels and mags, again, I think some people might look at that recoil direction of 56 and say arrowhead break for my barrel, that takes care of things. Do want to point out something here. This was brought to my attention by Phaeton, one of our patrons, but Bungie did make a tweak to the stability stat for auto rifles way long ago, where higher stability does also impact your recoil direction on auto rifles. It doesn't change the stat, but it does change kind of the feel, the recoil feel of auto rifles. So the closer that you get to 100 stability, the less jumpy an auto rifle is going to feel. So there is an option there that I want to bring to your attention. You could go polygonal rifling. That will take your stability all the way up to 68. If you want to also hit on the range as well, small bore is another great option there. If you are somebody who absolutely does need to touch the recoil direction stat itself, specifically, arrowhead break is going to be a great option there. Of course, that'll take you all the way up to 86. That's perfectly fine for me. If you need to go a little bit higher, you do have the counterbalance mod as well. Moving on to column 2, this is our magazines here. What I put on my crafted one was ricochet rounds, again helping out that stability stat, also helping out the range stat there. Of course, we pretty much say this every time we review a primary weapon or a special weapon for PvE. Flared magwell is just a great all-around option there. A little bit of stability, a lot of reload speed. That's always going to be really helpful. Getting into columns 3 and 4, though, this is where we get the excellent options here. A lot of different ways to play this. Well, yeah, let's just start going through it. In column 3, we've got perpetual motion, reconstruction, rewind rounds finally showing up outside of the Vault of Glass raid set, and demolitionist. There is pugilist as well. I don't think this has quite as much draw as demolitionist does. I won't talk about that too much, but it is also there if you want to go for a melee synergy here. In column 4, we've got target lock, adrenaline junkie, frenzy, paracausal affinity. This is our new raid perk for Root of Nightmares specifically. Bungie's been kind of swapping things up, and we're now getting a few raid perks that are showing outside of the raid in which they debuted. But for right now, Paracausal Affinity is only acquirable on this weapon set here. That is final blows of energy types matching this weapon's alignment grant increased damage for a short period of time. So light final blows boost the arc, solar, and void weapons. Darkness final blows boost stasis and strand here. That is a 20% increased damage for 6 seconds. So very nice little damage buff. And again, depending on how you spec into that, could be quite easy for our light-based elements here. Darkness alignment, Rufus is a strand auto rifle. You do have fewer options. Again, it's just stasis and strand if you want to think about what you're running in your heavy slot, how to synergize with that. But still, I think that's going to be a quite nice help to your damage for just thinking about your loadout a little bit more here. Fellas, I think we've kind of crafted similar roles here, but what combinations are jumping out to you when you look at this columns 3 and 4 here? What's really standing out as something of like, oh yeah, these two perks have some excellent synergy?
Well, first of all, imagine having more than 3 patterns for any of the raid weapons yet, because RNG be RNGing. But
I'm with you there, Saint.
Oh man,
it's only you that's crafted this, by the way.
You guys didn't get unlocked the second. Oh, okay.
Yeah, weird, right?
This episode's cancelled.
So like rewind rounds on a weapon, like a primary is like particularly good. This one has like a pretty good mag, and I like demo in the third column. I know we always highly praise demo in the third column, as it should be, right? But man, yeah, rewind also looks quite strong on this, especially if I'm pairing it with target lock, right? And I think that like something like demo and paracasual affinity also like really has a draw to me, as you can trigger it with the weapon itself can trigger the trait, right? And
Yes.
as the frenzy enjoyer, that's like definitely something that I like gravitate towards a lot. But for like the extra 5% on a single kill proc for what is it, like 7 seconds, 6 seconds? It's a significant amount of time. I think maybe it's 6 and then 7 for the enhanced version of it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, just absolutely stellar traits for a weapon that is getting bumped up to be comparable to our SMGs, in just a week or two, right?
Yeah. Yeah, this is going to be an absolutely stellar option. Again, for SMGs on the Strand Affinity, I think we've had Immortal kind of really make a dominant appearance. There is also the Neomuna SMG, that's also Strand, but I think Immortal is kind of the dominant option. I really do think after the buff, Rufus will be the number one Strand primary for a good while, and until we get maybe a few more Strand-specific weapon perks. But, Court, what's catching your eye?
So this is more so for if I'm playing Warlock. I'm looking more like Demo and Hatchling, because, just really siphon in the whole Demolitionist given back grenade for whether I'm running Hatchling grenade or other grenades, and then Hatchling itself getting enhanced by the Warlock Strand builds. I know you've been talking about, you've got a build in the server as well. That's the two perks I'm kind of looking at in terms of Rufuses, but there's some real juicers here. It's like really, like they're all great options. Like this might be a multi or even triple weapon crafted just so I don't have to keep moving things around. But yeah, I'm definitely getting it next week because I'm 4 out of 5. So it's something I'm looking forward to crafting. And it's been a while since I've had a nice rapid fire kind of weapon. I think, God, when was the last weapon I used? Some time ago. I think, was it...
Were you a Chroma Rush guy?
A little bit, but I to be honest, Sweet Sorrow is what I'm thinking of. So yeah, not that far ago. It's a year
like
since that came out.
18? 17? 16. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Land tank.
Yeah, 16. Long time.
Yeah, land tank. Yeah.
Plus that sofa roll on that thing was quite strong.
Yeah, that's what I have. I'm looking at right now in my dim. I've got sofa, and yeah, I haven't took it out for a spin for a while, but I think Rufus's will be the next kind of, well, it's in a different slot anyway. It's in the top slot, but yeah, looking forward to it.
Yeah, I think that Rewind and... Oh, go ahead.
No, you go ahead, actually.
I was just going to say, Rewind and Target Lock, like Reconstruction Target Lock is cool, but Rewind is like guaranteeing if I'm landing my shots, I'm getting that extra, I'm getting like 40 or 50% of my ammo back in the mag if I proc maximum return on Rewind. And yeah, I'm just have such a prolonged state of that plus 40% if I'm trying to beam down beefier targets on like higher difficulty, that, yeah, I think that is going to be a excellent higher difficulty, like Grandmaster tier weapon right there.
Yeah. I'm curious to hear from the Hunters and Titans. How do you feel about Hatchling? Because you do not have the crazy amount of synergy with Threadlings that Warlocks do. I mean, it's an obvious pick for me, of course, because of the build that the Bungie's given us. I mean, it's pretty much been hand gifted to us with the two aspects revolving around Threadlings, our super revolving around Threadlings. We've got one of our 3 grenades that deals with Threadlings. So no brainer for me is the Warlock, but how do you guys feel about the Hatchling perk and whether or not that's going to be viable for your Strand builds? Or are you more looking at this as maybe just a general nice to have, a little guy helping you out as you're playing on whatever subclass you choose to play on?
Court, you go ahead.
I think for us two, Titans and Hunters, it's more about you really have to build crafted to it. And, you guys know how much I do enjoy build crafting. So for us, we'd have to, look at Thread of Evolution, which is, Threadlings travel faster and further. Obviously, Warlocks get much more benefit from that because it's your whole core of the build. But I'm just thinking more, how can threadlings give other aspects of the strand subclass build or loop? I would need to have a look at it more in specifically, just like, can threadlings cause XYZ? Can they sever? Can they suspend? Can they unravel? That's what I'm looking at. I don't have the things in front of me right now, but that's what I would be kind of focused on with hatchling. But yeah, that's why I kind of preface with, if I'm Warlock, I would probably go that demo and hatchling role, because it's part of the core build. It's part of, sending out an army of bugs, and my weapon also does it. And I suppose you could pair it up with, what's the thread that...
You're thinking of Rebirth, aren't you?
Yeah. Double up. It does work. I'm aware it does work. So yeah, rank and file is, so it's a counter, spawns a threadling upon reaching 100%. Rank and file is 34%. Elites are 67%, and mini bosses and bosses were 100%. So if you kill a mini boss or a boss with a precision, you get 2 threadlings spawn. So it's stuff like that. That's interesting me in terms of. For a warlock build. For hunter, yeah, I could see your point. It might be better to go down the rewind rounds, paracausal, or frenzy, or target lock. Saint?
Yeah, I'm just so focused on like using my subclass and everything for like defense that the threadlings, they just don't have like a ton of draw to me, and they can trigger some strain keywords, but yeah, as like the suspension build, like Titan main, woven mail focus, just doesn't have like a ton of draw for me. I'll definitely keep one, but yeah, it just doesn't have, especially when I'm like, we're always considering like what we're giving up for that interaction. And I think that this, like, the damage buffs that the other damage buff that this weapon has to offer are definitely going to make up for that feeling of like the 10% loss of like versus using a kinetic rapid fire auto. And I think that's what I'm looking for if I'm going to use this weapon, is that it's going to feel good and it has the traits to like push past the fact that it's giving up a little bit of damage. And I think that the paracasual affinity, frenzy, and target lock are what is going to like give that damage feel, even if like the utility is totally there with threadling. I would rather go with like demo in the other column and just have more suspension grenades and let column 4 be about the damage.
I think last point for me regarding your question there, Impetus, is related to, well, in future we'll have all 3 classes will have new aspects, and presumably fragments as well. We're due to get them, so it depends on how, for Titans and Hunters, if we have an aspect or fragments that have a little bit more kind of interaction with hatchlings, threadlings, be very interesting. But at the moment, Warlocks are they're juiced up with the with threadlings.
We are eating good.
Yes,
and so are the threadlings. They are also eating good.
That is true. Yeah, so again, Court mentioned these 2 fragments, but I'll just go through them one more time here. If you are planning to use the Hatchling weapon perk, make sure that you are running the Thread of Evolution fragment. That's the threadlings travel further and deal additional damage. And then Thread of Rebirth, where your strand weapon final blows have a chance. It's a counter, right? An escalating chance to create a threadling. Stack those with your Hatchling perk and go to town. Make your own army there. Go crazy.
All right, now I would love to talk about our next weapon, the Michael's Reverence. It is a Strand Rapid Fire Sidearm, 450 RPM. It has the same intrinsic bonus, full auto, which is no longer relevant, but the 0.8 scalar reload for 20% faster reloads when that mag is empty. This is a weapon that has been greatly affected by will be greatly affected by our upcoming primary buffs, and it has some absolutely juice stats, just like our last one and some of the other weapons we'll see here. 33 range, highest in class, 67 stability, highest, 53 handling, second highest to Fool's Remedy at 59, and then 47 reload speed, highest. It's just the best rapid fire sidearm pretty much out there. whenever we look at like some barrels and mags, we have got hammer forged, for the just base range, polygonal for some stability, and small bore, kind of like our mix. Small bore's probably where I'm going to be going with my crafted one. For the magazine, we've got ricochet rounds in flared magwell. I really want high uptime in this thing, and it can burn through its mag quick. So I'm probably going to go with flared magwell to pair with my small bore. I really like that quick reload speed on here. That is giving plus 15 reload and plus 5 stability. And this is where it starts getting cranked up. And it's, it has some new offerings that like nothing else has, right? In column 3, we have Unrelenting, Rewind, again here, Pugilist, Perpetual Motion. And then column 4, we have Frenzy, we've got Swash, we have Hatchling, and Paracausal Affinity. Man, talk about a weapon that is poised to be a shredder in the upcoming sandbox. Court, what are you picking for your main traits here? What are you going for on your strand sidearm? Is this enough to pull you off the Brigand's Law train, or where are you at?
Probably, but again, I could run double. I could run.
Stop it,
Michael.
Stop
double sidearm, man.
You don't mean
what
that.
Universe is this, dude?
I mean, looking at those charts. No, I think. Yeah, again, I think it's that toss up between reconstruction versus rewind rounds here. I think rewind is probably going to be your best bet if you're tapping into the whole. If you're defeating a bunch of targets plus Paracausal Affinity or Frenzy, I think that's what I'm looking forward here. Hatchling, maybe not so much. I think sidearms just take a little bit more of an effort to get those precision shots. So Hatchling's maybe not something I'd be like aiming for. But yeah, Rewind, Paracausal. There is, I mean, we always recommend that for sidearms, and it's no change here, but Pugilist and Swashbuckler are also here as well. That's your classic sidearm pair. Impetus, what are you thinking?
I'm thinking that if this had threat detector in column 3, I'd be a shill. I mean, it wouldn't even be close. Like, goodness gracious, this thing would be incredible, but we don't have that here. I did get an adept version of this with Perpetual Hatchling. I'm kind of on the fence again. I can't remember if I've actually fired this one in particular, but yeah, the rapid fire frame sidearms and precision kills, not a great match. It takes a lot of control, even for someone on a mouse and keyboard. I do have to throw my mouse kind of behind me to really stay on target there. I would have probably preferred Frenzy over this. If I'd gotten the Pugilist Swash, I don't know if I would go so far as to enhance that up all the way on the adept version, but I'm probably looking at that combination, to be honest, for a crafted, regular version. It's just really hard to go for Hatchling, even though sidearms are getting a huge damage buff. It's really hard to go for Hatchling when I've got a Rufus or an Immortal with that. Like, the range band is so essential. It's just giving you space away from enemies, right, which keeps you alive, lets you kind of focus on enemies, stuff that might be to the left or right of you, to behind you. But when you're in the thick of things, which is where sidearms excel, which is where they're going to excel, you don't have as much time to react. So you got to be really quick on the draw, and you got to be slaying out too to make sure that you don't die. So yeah, I think Swash would have been a really, really strong option there. That ×5 could be tremendous in turning this into a monster. Over Hatchling, yeah, probably not worth it as much for me. So, how about you, Saint?
Yeah, I think that's a really good, like you're mentioning there, just like about the range bands. You do have about an extra 10 meters of range. Rufus, you're hitting about 25-ish. With the sidearm Michael's Reverence, you're looking at about 15, maybe 16 if like you're really cranking up the damage. So to your point, you do have about another 10 meters of range before you're hitting damage drop off, which is substantial. But if I am playing my like aggressive Strand Titan build, right, where I'm doing a lot of suspension, I think I'm going with Paracausal Affinity and Rewind with like Flared Magwell, right, to get that reload speed high. If not Paracausal, I'm going Frenzy, and then I would probably go Ricochet rounds with like a range masterwork, try to just get that up to almost 16 meters of range, because when Frenzy is up, I'm gonna be at 100 handling, 100 reload speed. But yeah, Rewind and Frenzy, or Rewind and Paracausal Affinity, because of the way that Rewind is affecting my effective like magazine size, it's just going to be an absolute shredder if you're willing to play aggressively. If you are reading into like maybe you're like I'm saying, my really defensive like armor focused subclass, then that's allowing me to maybe just lean a little bit more with my weapons here to just straight up dealing damage. Yeah, and I think that Rewind is so critical on this, even though there's no target lock. It is like the way that your reload speed and your uptime for your bullets are affecting like the damage that you're able to output is just like kind of crazy with a weapon like this that's usually so limited by its reload speed. So yeah, I'm hoping. I don't think I'm coping. I think I'm just hoping that this is going to be a seriously strong PvE option for those that are willing to get up close and personal in the upcoming weeks, and we'll see if that holds up. We'll see if that's true, but I'm banking on it, and I'm definitely going to be trying to craft this guy. I don't know if what my next weapon is. I'm at 3 out of 3 on both this and the AR, and I'm tied. I'm pretty hard push to pick which one's going to get the focus first, but we'll see here.
Bungie's been trying with these sidearms, man. We got Brigand's Law back in Plunger, and then Liminal Vigil, really turning it up on the Stasis side the next season, and now we've got the season after that. I mean...
Yeah, plus you got Drang over there, which you want to talk about range and the sidearm. Right, yeah, Drang is your play. But right, yeah, enough about our conversion to sidearms for now. As weird as it may be, it's kind of happening. It could be really happening in a couple weeks. Okay, what do we got? I think we're moving to special weapons. What's up next, Court?
Well, we have Nessa's Oblation, which is the Void Pinpoint Slug Frame. That's 65 RPM. So the frame bonus is obviously you fire a single slug round, and that's a minus 20% recoil yaw. That's also known as just reduced horizontal recoil. So we're going to be kind of pairing it with Bone Chiller, Fellow Void, Ganora's Axe, which is the Iron Banner Arc, and the Inquisitor, which is the Trials Arc shotguns, along with Sojourner's Tail, which is solar. So it's 63 range, it's third, with Inquisitor at 73, Bone Chiller's at 56, 47 stability, third with Inquisitor at 50, 69 handling, that's second with Inquisitor at 76, Bone Chiller at 36, and 49 reload at second with Inquisitor at 52. So we're all pretty strong stat package with the high handling and reloads. I think it's always difficult to compete with the Trials stat monsters, but do remember the origin traits. If you have 2 other weapons, you get that plus 20 for handling and for reload speed, plus the 5% duration multiplier, plus the 10% damage. So just take that into consideration if you want to go full sicko mode with the Root of Nightmare weapons, have them in all your slots. You can do that if you want to really max out those handling and reload stats. Of course, it would help for the other weapons, not just for Nessa's. For highlighted barrels and magazines, probably looking at small bore, which is that plus 7 stability to plus 7 to stability and range, or you can go corkscrew, which is your plus 5 to stability, range, and handling. Assault mag for the DPS, that does bring up your RPN by plus 5. It does matter. Otherwise, you can go down tack mag or appended mag for the magazine bump. Now, I think the most interesting aspect of Nessus is probably related to the perks here. And the 2 ones that are kind of highlighted for me are your great synergy perks, and that's repulsive race and destabilizing rounds. That's your kind of your void synergy all tied up in a nice little bow. But you do have some great picks outside of them. You've got 4th Time's the Charm, you've got Demo, Reconstruction is here, Dragonfly, again, we don't normally see Dragonfly these days, but it's here. In column 4, you've got Frenzy, you've got Power Causal Affinity, you've got Vorpal, and you've got Focus Fury. So some nice perks all round. I think for me, the build would be Repulsor and Destabilizing, just to get that nice synergy. For Void. Void's in a really great spot at the moment, not because of Season 20 having all these Void mods and artifact perks, but I think just the synergies and the loops with the Void sandbox is really like top tier. What do you think, Saint? What's your vibes? What perks would you be kind of aiming towards?
Yeah, I mean, there are like the Paracausal and Frenzy, right? I mean, even Vorpal is fine on this. Like you could say that's even more consistent for like damage dealing. But I've already got like a Ganora's Axe and a Philo that are kind of like the set up to be their, auto-loading holster like Vorpal, right? Those are kind of already set up to be my boss damage dealers. If I double slug is currently back, or if I'm just trying to deal with something up close, right? Those are both great weapons. So yeah, I'm probably going to agree with you that Repulsor and Destabilizing is just like, there's just such a draw to that combo, especially I really enjoy playing Offensive Bulwark Titan, and that is just a really great pairing with that. If you're going like Echo of Starvation and Persistence and Undermining, you can pick up Devour, plus your Overshield is getting your grenade charge back super fast. You're just absolutely slinging out your debuff grenades, and you're able to keep a super high uptime on your Void Overshield. So that's allowing me to like weaken targets. I go in for the kill, they get destabilized, I kill a target around them, I'm getting, I'm getting ammo back. Yeah, I mean, it's just super strong and it's super unique. And I wish that it's a shame that the exotic is in the other slot and they're both shotguns. So I won't really be running these together, because that would just like be a crazy way to cover all of your elements there. But it's just not quite enough range. If I'm picking a set, I'm probably running this thing with Rufus, so I have that like 25-ish meters of range to have like a little extra range if I wanna double down on the weapon set here. Yeah, it was just anything to add there.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, prior to this season and expansion, we didn't really have some excellent Void Shotgun options. Of course, there was the Comedian, which was a total joke. That did have an Adept version. And then you had some weird ones like Retold Tale, Deicide, Retrofuturist. But, this season we've got Basso Ostinato, which is one of our terminal overload weapons, and now this in our raid here. And yeah, I've got a nice Grave Robber 1-2 punch Basso, which I think is going to be really nice for those major / boss if I need to put out a lot of damage. So I'm definitely leaning towards Repulsor Brace Destabilizing rounds just for when I want to go absolutely aggressive, get right up in there. Maybe if the sidearms do finally win me over and I'm out here rocking Michaels, then I'll put this on in the energy slot and get all up in there going crazy, swapping between those two weapons. Who knows? But yeah, that one's definitely a unique perk combination that only exists on Nessa's, and then the Regnant Heavy Grenade Launcher, which is from this Season of Defiance, and is also craftable. So it seems like it's probably going to be an uncommon pairing. Those perks do typically show up in column 4 together, so it's always nice to see Repulsor Brace jump over to column 3 and to get Destabilizing in column 4 again. Huge. So yeah, I don't think we'll probably, I don't know, are we using slug shotguns for damage in anything? Or is that still the option in like Master Vault of Glass, or do we switch over to fusions entirely? I can't remember.
I mean, it's just like, it's got to compete with our breach load GLs and our wave GLs, which just have like such a strong offering in the current sandbox. And I think that's honestly, it's what keeps me from using more slug shotguns more often, other than our Deepstone Crypt, whose name escapes me at the moment.
Heritage?
Yeah, Heritage. I was going to say, it's literally in my kinetic slot right now. I don't know. I can't think of the name. But yeah, like Heritage is just such a strong option because of its base. But this one is just like it's pretty strong, and it's really fun to use, right? With the combo. I got a normal version of this. I got lucky with the combo on that. And that was, okay, so something I'll shout out real quick is, Chris mentioned that like Vivian had originally designed Repulsor Brace and thought that was like a super interesting perk, and then he turned around and basically made destabilizing rounds as like a way to access that easily on the same weapon, and I think that was like pretty cool. They were talking about how they kind of like the ideas came together to make a weapon like this. Is really cool. But if you do want to use that combo and you are on that Titan build, this is really a strong combo.
Oh yeah.
Even if you're not capitalizing in the weapon set, you're going to use something like Outbreak Perfected or Revision 0 in your other slot, right? This is like a really great way to be super aggressive and have super high uptime in your abilities, especially for Titans. I think it's incredibly strong. If you don't use Offensive Bulwark and Repulsor Brace, man, you're missing out. You really got to give that build a try on any weapon that you can find it on. It's not so strong, especially in this season.
All right, let's move on to our second special weapon here. This is Akazia's Dejection, not Rejection, as I said earlier here. This is our second solar trace rifle, firing at 1,000 rounds per minute here. So the first solar trace rifle, also the first legendary trace rifle, was Retraced Path, which drops from Dares of Eternity. We do also have Hollow Denial, the Void option, and then Path of Least Resistance. That's our Arc option here. This is going to be a really easy stat comparison because Akazia's Dejection is highest in all of the stats compared to the other three. So, best legendary trace rifle in the game, which to some of us, it doesn't mean a whole lot because the exotic trace rifles have definitely gotten a lot of attention and love recently. So, I'll just say, good thing this isn't a Void trace rifle, because there could be some very stiff competition there. But yes, this is still quite an excellent offering here. Looking at the barrels again, Akazia is, as a lot of trace rifles, really high in the range and stability here. We're looking at 69 range, 80 stability, 59 handling, 53 reload speed here. So it's going to be a really pleasant shooting experience. You do not need to tweak with the base stats a whole lot here. I'm actually going to push more towards buffing out range and stability over the handling and reload speed because of some of the perks that show up in columns 3 and 4 that do give pretty big bumps to the handling and reload. So when I'm looking at barrels, honestly, it's hammer forged, polygonal, small bore. Those are the ones that really stand out to me for getting those top two stats, range and stability, up a little bit higher. Personal preference there. Your recoil direction is 96. I mean, trace rifles are just so stable to shoot. You don't even need to worry about the recoil direction. It can be really nice. So if you want to lean all the way into range, go for it. I think that'll be really nice here. Again, trace rifles, mostly a add clear weapon that we don't really use for boss damage, although there are some options on this that might change your mind, but for the most part, it's for add clear. Looking at our magazines on trace rifles, there are batteries. I am always leaning towards enhanced battery. I like extra shots. That can be really nice here. That will send you over 100 in the magazine. I know that one from experience, so Foundry isn't lying to me on this one here. So that can be always nice for extra shots for whatever you need. But again, if you want to tweak with stats, again, you do have some options here. Light battery just gives a little bit of a touch to handling and reload speed. Tactical battery spreads things out to hit on range and stability as well. That could be a perfectly fine option. If you want to really max out stability, you got particle repeater with a +10. But I think there's some great options. Projection fuse for range. Really just stay away from ionized battery. No need to hurt the reload speed with a -20. That's way too much. Personally, I'm leaning enhanced battery, but if you want to keep tweaking with stats, you've got some great options there. Column 3, this is where we get into the fun stuff. So you've got field prep, perpetual motion, keep away, reconstruction, rewind rounds. I mean, goodness sakes. All different kinds of ways to either avoid reloading or help with the reload speed. Again, you don't need to touch the reload speed stat. You've got keep away if you want to proc that. That's 30 reload right there. That's helpful. Field prep, of course. I mean, that is going to max out your reload speed all the way to 100. Perpetual motion giving a little bit of a touch to a bunch of different stats, including reload speed. And then reconstruction, rewind rounds, you're just bypassing the manual reload entirely there. Envious Assassin is here. Again, bait perk. You've got a huge magazine that you need to burn through and then fill up to get Envious Assassin to the overflow portion, which is what everyone wants to focus on. Do not run Envious Assassin unless you plan on only shooting the gun in little bursts when you have a full magazine, so that you don't, you got to get kills with other weapons to even get to the overflow. And again, trace rifles, they're about add clear. You're meant to be killing the minor enemies quickly with this kind of a weapon, so do not run Envious Assassin here. Columns 4. Oh my goodness. Here we go. Frenzy, Target Lock, Paracausal Affinity, and Incandescent are the ones that are really jumping out. Vorpal Weapon is here again. I'm not sold on using this quite for for mini bosses and bosses. Do you guys, are you considering, do you have any of your legendary trace rifles that you're using for like major enemies, or do you kind of adhere to that? And I guess this will also eventually include target lock in this discussion. I mean, are you looking at that for the higher damage threshold to kind of maybe look at some beefier targets, or are you just going to stick away from those entirely?
I think for me, I would go for target lock over Vorpal if I'm going down the route of a mini boss or a boss kind of weapon. Because what I'm thinking with this trace rifle is it can double up as either a legendary Cold Heart with, say, Reconstruction plus target lock, or it can double up as a Prometheus lens with kind of either, I don't know, either Reconstruction or Rewind or Field Prep. Probably Rewind plus Incandescent, because Prometheus does get the Incandescent kill as well, on top of applying Scorch. Obviously, this legendary doesn't apply Scorch as standard, it just has access to Incandescent. So those are the two kind of weapon roles that I'm looking at. Just to kind of, okay, I can't run Cold Heart because I'm using something else elsewhere. So I'd rather, go for something like this. So this is what, as soon as I saw this drop in the database back when the raid weapons were made public, I was just like, oh, okay, that looks interesting. But also, Incandescence there, just to kind of play into the whole solar synergy. Saint, you got any thoughts with this?
Yeah, I'll say that I think Keep Away is nice. Right. I mean, this thing has like base of over 34 meters of effective range, which is pretty far. And I don't think that people think that Trace Rifle's range is actually as far as it is. Right. I think it's a little underrated. But yeah, it's got like 34 meters of range, and that's really nice. Keep Away is like taking it up to 80 something, 83 reload, but it's probably Rewind for me. And you've got Paracausal is like, again, it's 20% for 6 seconds on kill, which is incredibly strong. And then you also have Incandescent, and I think it just depends. Like Incandescent, if I'm going with my like Solar Titan build, and Paracausal Affinity, pretty much if I'm rolling with any other element and I'm not using Ember of Ashes to really capitalize on Incandescent, which is really good. But yeah, Paracausal for that 20% for 6 seconds on kill or ability kill, especially if I'm like, okay, so let's say I'm running Bonk Hammer, right? I can run up, you bonk a target, right? You gain Radiance, and then I immediately proc Paracausal Affinity with my Rewind rounds, and I'm able to just like shred through a group of targets. This is also something that's going to allow me, I do kind of wish that Lead from Gold was in column 3 because of the way it lends itself to allowing you to run double special really easily. But over Rewind, I don't know if Fuel Prep has the draw for me, even if it does help the ammo economy a little bit with the double special argument. I think Rewind is just so much better for clearing out ads. And Keep Away doesn't really work with like running Bonk Hammer and a really aggressive Solar Titan. Those two things just like don't coincide.
Yeah, on that point, actually, if it did have that in column 3, I would be instantly recommending this as use this as your double special loadout. Even more so because of the origin trait. Again, I keep looping back to the origin trait, because if you pair that with, let's just say you've got something else like an Arbalist or something like that, something that's kind of single shot in your primary slot, but a heavy, which we'll talk about very shortly, 2 heavies here, Briars and Caraxes, just to get that, 10 handling bump, or your reload duration multiplier, plus your 3.3% damage increases. It adds up. Those things add up. And if you want to pair just a typical loadout where it's, Rufus's Fury or Michael's plus Acacia's and one of the heavies, then yeah, again, that's your option. Or you can go down the route of the exotic shotgun, which is probably what I would recommend as well, just for those sort of really up close and personal situations with the shotgun, and then you've got your quote primary weapon with this trace rifle. But it's just missing that perk, I think, is what's like, maybe not go down that route. Maybe go for something like a target lock, kind of mini cold heart.
It's so funny to hear you guys say that about field prep, because that's absolutely the perk that I want in column 3. Because Mossy's put me onto the power of enhanced field prep. I mean, the help to the reserves is just huge here. So the role that I want to craft is field prep frenzy. Now, when frenzy's active, you're looking at 100 handling and 100 reload speed, which is why I said don't even bother about touching those stats in columns 1 or 2, because frenzy can really help you in that part. Field prep will of course also get you to 100 reload speed if you remember to crouch, but in the heat of the moment you can sometimes forget. But yeah, I want to do small bore, enhanced battery, enhanced field prep, and then frenzy with the range masterwork there, and really just juice the stats up to high 80s and then double 100s for the handling and reload speeds, and just have a lot of ammo there.
I guess I'd have to see what the actual number is on the inventory stat, because
for the reserves,
if it really is that big for enhanced field prep, maybe you're right. Maybe I'm misjudging.
We shall see. We shall see.
All right, I'm going to jump into another really unique, really juiced weapon here. We have Caraxis Distress. This is a strand rapid fire heavy grenade launcher, 150 RPM. That same 0.8x reload duration scaler on empty. I know we had Business Goose. He reached out to us on Twitter asking about roles of this weapon and what we think, how it compares. So, here we go, man. We first of all, on its stats, you've got no direct competitors. Of course, it's the first strand one. For some other like relative competitors, you've got Tarnation, Arc, Marsilian Sea, Solar, Canis Major, Solar, Swarm of the Raven, older one here, Void, and then Outrageous Fortune, which is also Solar. They can't really compete though, because yet again, this thing is pretty much best in class for a lot of the stats that it has to offer. 58 velocity, best in class, 27 stability, which is actually second to Outrageous at 29, 25 handling, best in class, and 28 reload, again, best in class. Absolute stat monster here. For just some highlighted barrels and mags real quick, probably quick launch, plus 10 velocity, plus 15 handling is really strong, but you also have linear compensator for a plus 5 blast radius, plus 5 velocity, and plus 5 stability, which could be kind of nice depending on the role you're looking for here. Magazine size, it's hard to ignore spike grenades for the small bump in damage that we're getting there. Maybe I could hear an argument for augmented drum if you have a really strong reload perk, which we'll talk about in just a second. That can put an extra 2 rounds in the mag, but I think spike is just going to be your kind of safe bet, your go-to here. Our notable traits in column 3, we've got field prep, envious assassin, reconstruction, demo, and chain reaction. And then in column 4, we've got frenzy, hatchling, harmony, and paracausal affinity. And there's a clip that has kind of been making its rounds that I'm just going to shout out here right off the bat of the way that hatchling works on a weapon like this. And I think this is something that we didn't really have any weapons that could do this before, because if you read hatchling description, it says that precision final blows or rapidly defeating targets with a non-precision weapon spawns a threadling at the target's location. Okay, well, we've got a non-precision weapon, we've got hatchling, and we've got some interesting third column traits to pair that with, including chain reaction. And the way that chain reaction works with hatchling for counting for weapon kills the same way that the initial kill would means that you can kind of go absolutely crazy with the amount of hatchlings that you can spawn with this thing. And Impetus, what was our fragment that allows us to generate hatchlings based off of
Rebirth.
Weapon skills?
Rebirth.
Yeah, so man, you pair a hatchling with chain reaction, with rebirth, with evolution. I mean, you are truly just going absolutely nuts with an army of these things, even on a non-warlock build. I think it's a strong enough argument to push me that way. Court, Impetus, you guys see any other roles on this that you're really looking for, or are we just leaning in on the army of hatchlings here? Threadlings, I should say.
I am... Yes, I'm going for the army. I think because it's the most unique pairing. We've got other grenade launchers that, have Well, this doesn't have explosive light, but it's got some other we're not friends with full court. Wellspring's there, Harmony's there, so your choice is really limited surroundings there as well. So it's Frenzy, Paracausal Affinity, or Hatchling. And Paracausal, it's just at the end of the day, it's just a 20% buff, so you can get that elsewhere. So yeah, for me, it's a Hatchling. And chain reaction and the fragments that you were talking about there, just because it's the most unique pairing. But the clip that's going around, it does show it with some really squishy Shadow Thrall. So a little bit of a kind of, it looks better than it probably will be in, say, higher end content, but just being able to get a bunch of ads really low HP and then fire one or a couple explosive shots, and then boof, you've got so many threadlings just spawning from this massive explosion. It does look a lot of fun, so that's what I'm going for.
Yeah, chain reaction is the huge draw for me, really. The fact that it's in column 3 and I compare it with the damage perk. The hatchling stuff, if I get a threadling to spawn, that's really just the cherry on top, man. Again, heavy grenade launchers right now kind of straddle that mini boss damage versus ad clear, and rapid fires definitely lean more into the ad clear role. They do not hold up quite as well as some of the adaptive frame heavy jails do for mini boss and boss damage. So I'm not using this on anything that's not going to probably die in one shot, or at least wouldn't be wiped out by that chain reaction explosion. So definitely going down the ad clear route, and the ability to just spam a bunch of shots, watch everything explode in green, and then little bugs kind of rise out of the ashes like Dark Phoenixes is definitely the fantasy that I will be leaning into. But again, as the Warlock, I get to really, I'd be silly not to, right? So yeah, really, really fun roll. Cannot wait. I have yet to get even one to drop a chain reaction or hatchling together, so I'm waiting, desperately waiting for those red borders to stack up that I can start crafting this.
All right, just one more weapon. Well, actually, that's not true. One more legendary, and then we'll hit on our exotic at the end of this set here.
Yes, it is Briar's Contempt. It is the Solar Aggressive. That's your 3-burst linear fusion rifle. So this is our first Solar Aggressive frame, LFR. It's coming hot off the heels of the Stasis Fire and Forget from last season and a few seasons ago. Before that was Storm Chaser, which is from Duality Dungeon. So it's got 51 range. That's versus 35 with focused, fire, and 31 versus Storm Chaser. 47 stability, which is just in the middle. 44 for Fire and Forget, and 48 for Storm Chaser. 27 handling, that's same as Fire and Forget, and slightly less than Storm Chaser. Then we've got 74 recoil direction, which is 1 less than Fire and Forget, and 6 less than Storm Chaser. So a little bit, some decent stats here and there. Fire and Forget probably still going to be your best option when it comes to an aggressive frame. Because of Vice Stinger, yes, it was nerfed. It was brought in line with its competitors here, but I think it's more down to the perks. I think it would go amiss, or I would say it would be a shame to also note that why aren't we talking about Cataclysmic? Well, we will. We will talk about it right now. I think Cataclysmic or Solar Precision LFR, the one-shot, is still the best and the peak LFR with bait and switch if you're after a Solar LFR. So it's a bit of a shame. I think out of all the weapons that we've talked about, I think this is maybe the one that's a bit that's a bit of a shame that we have a Solar Aggressive LFR, which is great. We've got a new element for the aggressive frames, but it just pales in comparison to Cataclysmic, which is still the top tier LFR. I know we've not been talking about LFR as much in the last couple of episodes. They have been kind of knocked down. They're still very useful, but it may come down to what type of perks we're going to be picking here. So for barrels and magazines, probably going to go for floated barrel or polygonal rifling, just up the stability. Alternatively, you can go for arrowhead break to maximize the recoil direction, plus you get the 10 handling. or chambered compensator, which is plus 10 recoil direction and plus 10 stability, but minus 5 handling. Magazine here, really dependent on what you're picking here, but I've kind of suggested enhanced battery just to get that plus 1. It does play into some of the perks, which we'll talk about here. Envious Assassin is here, maybe a bit more of a kind of draw compared to, you're not going to be using this with, say, rewind rounds, compared to other weapons we've been talking about this episode. We also have Reconstruction is here. We've got Demo, and we've also got Incandescent in the third column. So not in the fourth, the third. In the fourth column, we've got Frenzy, we've got Focus Fury, and we've got Paracausal Affinity. In terms of builds here, I think, you've got your typical kind of DPS damage build, which is Reconstruction plus Focused Fury. If you want to go down that route, that'll bring your magazine up to 12, from what I've seen anyway. Or you could go down a fun build, which is Incandescent plus Paracausal Affinity. So you're using more of this as a kind of minor elite or kind of mini boss killer. The loop here is Paracausal Affinity will proc off Incandescent, Scorch, and Ignition, and its weapon kills, plus your solar subclass, light-based kills as well, but be best used on solar subclass to synergize with the Scorch and Ignition. And then Incandescent itself, the Scorch inherits the Paracausal Affinity buff. And then also the Origin trait. Again, that's what I was talking about earlier on. You could pair this with, say, Rufus's Fury or Michael's Reverence, plus your special, whether that's the slug frame shotgun or the trace rifle, just to get that 10% damage increase as well, which will benefit the Incandescent Scorch buffs. So it's a nice little loop there. Saint, have you got any other kind of thoughts or vibes with this?
No, I think, if I'm going for a trio of these weapons, this is definitely going to be my pick for the damage dealer, right? The Caraxes is, that's a lot of fun, but that's kind of like a middle ground between, an ad clear weapon and not really, a super damage dealer, especially if we're going for, the Threadling role, which is great, but that's not quite, pushing the meta in terms of dealing damage. This one actually has a pretty strong offering. If I'm using Paracausal Affinity, that's 20%, or if just Frenzy straight up. Plus, I'm getting full capitalization on the Origin trait for that extra 10% against Tormentors. Then, with Frenzy, I'm getting an effective 25% increase in damage against a Tormentor if I'm using the shotgun, the trace rifle, and the linear. And that loadout has some legitimate appeal to me. But yeah, it's probably what I'm probably going for. Either Rewind or Demo plus Frenzy or Paracausal Affinity, depending on where I'm going with that. If I'm on my Solar Titan build, I think again that Paracausal with the trace rifle having the same trait, going off Bonk Amber, which you're dealing a lot of damage with, along with something like Rewind rounds, is going to let you deal that continuous damage. Pretty strong offering. Tough to compete with bait and switch. It's 35%, which is ridiculous, but if you're tired of using the same weapons over and over, this has legitimate offering, especially if you're going through some heroic story missions or legend, not heroic story missions, master story missions or legend story missions and things like that. You going back for the weekly, this is awesome. I know I'm going to have that buff against the Tormentors. And same thing for the raid opening, honestly. This is going to be pretty solid for dealing with this. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a shame. One season too late. 1 year of Destiny too late there for old Briar's Contempt. We would have been salivating last season if we had gotten our hands on this, but who knows? Maybe LFRs will change. Maybe the aggressives will come back in. I mean, they're not trash by any means, but they were definitely,
they're not what they once
a lot
were.
higher. Yeah, they are definitely not king of the hill anymore. But still, really, really solid option for a linear fusion rifle. That perk pool is quite spicy. You know what else is quite spicy?
Ooh.
Yes.
Let's talk about that shoddy.
Oh,
yeah, man.
So all three of us has got it. It is Conditional Finality. It is a very interesting gun. Yeah, so it's the dual barrel stasis / solar shotgun, and it resides in your kinetic slots, the top slot. It's the split decision exotic intrinsic. So your first barrel, your first shot, will be a stasis shot, and it has a triangle spread. And your second barrel is the solar shot, which has the circle spread. So very much someone at Bungie was having some fun with the the light versus dark kind of synergy here with even the spreads. And I will say we haven't really talked about the looks of these weapons, but I think out of all the weapons we've talked about, this is the most the coolest looking weapon, animation wise as well. You've got the little kind of spikes of the stasis crystals coming out one end, and then you've got a nice little kind of fire coming out the other for signifying your stasis and solar barrels. But even the someone pointed out the audio as well. You can hear the crackling of the ice and the crackling of the fire as well. So we've also got paracausal pellets. That's the exotic trait. So landing 10 out of the 12 stasis pellets applies freeze, and the same for solar. 10 out of 12 solar pellets causes an ignition. Obviously, this has got its own kind of array of its particular perks. So shortened barrel, that's plus 20 handling, -5 range, -5 stability. Alloy magazine, which is your 15% faster reload speed when the magazine is empty. Very useful on this. You'll be hitting that empty magazine all the time, so it helps out. So remember, it does reload both shells at once you've hit you've expended 2. You've also got a textured grip here, which is -5 stability and then plus 15 handling. So this gives a total of 30 impact, 10 stability, 95 handling, and 66 reload. Again, that's not taking into consideration of your 15% faster reload. So you'll just get the 66 reload with if you've shot once and then reload, and then you'll get 66 reload plus the 50% faster reload when empty. In terms of synergies, I won't spend too much time because there's a big list here, but for stasis, for stasis and solar, you've got unstoppable counter. So after shattering, you'll get that unstoppable trigger, and then applying the solar ignition, the ignition goes off, that will stun the unstoppable. For stasis fragments and kind of interactions with everything else, you've got Whisper Bonds. That's your additional super energy on frozen enemy kill. It does work here. I've seen a few clips going around where people are getting their super back a lot faster compared to before. So it is working. Whisper of Hadrons, which is that plus 60 to mobility, resilience, and recovery, plus some stats to stability, AA, and plus 20 airborne effectiveness. Whisper of Change, which is your 40% PVDR while within 10 meter of a frozen combatant, and Whisper of Refraction, which gives you class ability energy on frozen enemy defeat. Hunters also have the Grim Harvest just for spawning stasis shards, and you can pair that with its own loop with Conduction, Rhyme for your overshield. You've got Whisper of Hunger for increased gains with the picking up a stasis shard for your melee, 17.5 for small and 75% for large. And then our Warlock friends have on freezing an enemy, they spawn a stasis shard around them, depending on the quantity of which is depending on the combatant rank. So it's rank and files 1, elites are 2, and mini bosses and champions and bosses are 3. For solar, again, not going to go into too much detail. You've got Ember of Char, which kind of enhances the ignition. So it now spreads Scorch across to nearby enemies affected by the explosion. That's 40 base and 60 with ashes. Eruption, which increases the ignition explosive damage and the radius. Blistering, which ignition kills grant grenade energy. Ember of Wonder, which is the orb power spawn. If you kill enemies within close kind of duration of each, that's 2 or more, it spawns an orb of power, cooldown of 10 seconds. And our Titan friends can use with the Roaring Flames Titan aspect. So ignition kills grant stacks of Roaring Flames. That's got its own synergy there. So, what are we thinking? What's the vibe with the exotic shotgun? I will kick us off here. I think I mentioned this maybe last episode or the episode before that, but it's I'm not a big strong believer of shotguns, but this one, oh yeah, it's a juicer. I am having a ton of fun. Lots of fun freezing and igniting things. It's just I'm just completely loving it. With it being a shotgun, it's just like, wow. Impetus, what's your vibes?
The visual of freezing an unstoppable champion and then immediately hitting him with that ignition and the ignition explosion breaking the ice and then the champion just getting blasted and stunned is so cool, man. I've been running this in the seasonal activity because there's unstoppable champions, and of course this, you might as well just think of this weapon as having the unstoppable counter like slapped underneath it the way the Arbalist has anti-barrier, because yeah, you will never have to worry about unstoppable champions ever again with this shoddy. It is a blast to play with, and it's surprisingly easy to hit all the pellets. I mean, there were definitely some times where I was like, "Ooh, I don't think I'm getting it." Oh, I got it this time. Cool. So it's really helpful in a lot of areas that, and maybe it's just the spread changes, the pellet spread changes are helping me out in ways that I wasn't expecting. But yeah, this thing's a blast, man. This thing's a blast. Such a cool idea, and honestly, I don't think this needs a catalyst. Like it's got everything it needs to succeed already. You know, we'll see if this ends up getting a catalyst or not. But it's so good, dude, so good. And we finally have an exotic that changes elements. Like that's so neat, man. That is such a cool fantasy. How about you, Saint?
Yeah, I mean it's cool and it's strong simultaneously, right? And it's so like it is truly exotic feeling, and it just gives me that like Doom guy like with a shotgun. You know, you just need to like strand grapple your way right over to the enemy and then like shoot off the shotgun and have it ignite them, and it really just feels like I'm playing Doom, and that is an extreme compliment right there. I think that there are some funny things with like the stasis holster mods affect the weapon, but then like solar siphon mods, I think, also affect the weapon and help it generate orbs. So there's like some weird stuff going on there. And I think that just has to do with the fact that they put a natively solar weapon like in the kinetic slot, and like the game is like having a hard time comprehending like exactly what's happening. But to kind of round out the mentionings I've had of the build, I tested not a quite primed or optimal version of this, but like Path of the Burning Steps with the shotgun, with the Dejection Trace Rifle, and with Briar's, in the third slot is like incredibly strong. Honestly, you don't even need like, it's great to double down on the weapons because of the way that the origin trait like affects them. But man, the Burning Steps and being able to like have guaranteed ignitions with that class, and the way that allows you to like invest on your fragments because those ignitions are like guaranteed is just it's just so strong. It's just real strong, and it's a lot of fun to use. Yeah, I don't know. It's a top-notch exotic, and it truly is exotic.
And it's overcharged. So you get to even get some extra damage if you want to go rock this in your master content. So yeah. Good luck to you guys getting it to drop. Again, there are triumphs that will help out here. Look at the list of the raid triumphs. Claim those before the final encounter completes to max those chances out. But man,
yeah, do your subclass triumphs. Do your static triumphs that you can do for the encounters at any time that are rotators. Yeah, I can't recommend it enough. It really is awesome change there too.
Any final thoughts about our raid? We'll give, we've got our review that we'll do at the end of the season, but looking at the weapons and stuff, I mean, how are we feeling? Is this stacking up with the existing craftable raid weapons, Deepstone Crypt, King's Fall, Vow of the Disciple? How are we placed in this set?
I think my one criticism is that I would have enjoyed seeing the weapon slots like switched around just a little bit. Like a stasis trace rifle would have been super interesting And if the auto rifle or the sidearm, it is nice to see that like really strong Serene weapons coming from the raid, but it would be nice to have a primary in the energy slot. And I think it would have been really interesting to have the trace rifle in the kinetic slot. That would really mix things up. But like that's my biggest complaint, honestly, about the set as a whole. Overall, really cool. Near and dear with the origin trait and all that. But yeah, I don't know. Any Court, anything?
No, that's a good point, actually. Yeah, I never really thought about that because, yeah, I think if the linear fusion rifle was maybe Strand, I think it may have had a little bit more of a kind of synergy. I think with it dropping as solar, it's just been a bit dead on arrival. Well, not necessarily dead. It's still useful. It's got its utility, but yeah, a Strand or a stasis trace rifle that's not exotic would have been very interesting. Now that you point it out, not saying like it being solar is still fine. It's absolutely fine, but with it being stasis or Strand, much like glaives, I know I'm not sure how much we can like talk about it, but I know there's kind of various technical kind of limitations on how they can present kind of other like stasis or Strand weapons that aren't an exotic. So we're talking legendaries as a glaive or as a trace rifle. I'm not sure if that does apply to trace rifles, but that's the reason why we haven't had, say, like a stasis or a Strand glaive. Maybe the same reason we didn't get one for a trace rifle that's at least legendary anyway. But yeah, no, there are some good juicers here. Where it ranks with the other kind of raid weapons, I think Vow Disciple still has some really excellent choices there. I'm still running my submission, the lightweight kinetic SMG. I'm still running the cataclysmic, and just a few others that are floating about in my like weapons that I keep around, like Lubri's Rune, Insidious. Again, these are all weapons I still use, so doesn't hit that top mark, but it's no way poor. It's not a poor showing. Some really good juicers there. Impetus, what's your final thoughts? Where does this stack up with the other raids?
Yeah, I think Vow is still my top there. I mean, that was just a lot of fun stuff, a lot of great stuff that's aged really well. Granted, I mean, some of those combos are crazy strong looking back on it, and of course the origin trait very, very helpful. But yeah, I mean, this feels really different. I mean, again, the exotic shotgun is just so cool, and that feels awesome. I love the idea of paracausal affinity. I think that's a really interesting perk, whether or not that sticks to just the Root of Nightmares weapons, or we'll see that down the road on a different raid set. I will be keeping an eye out for it because it's got potential, a lot of potential. So, and then for the weapons themselves, I mean, yeah, we got some great primaries, and that's good because I think a lot of people have been feeling up till now that primaries needed some help, and now that they've got the buff, we've got two excellent, outstanding, even pinnacle options for the auto rifles and the sidearms respectively, and also trace rifles since they kind of function like a super strong primary. So yeah, very excited to get to play around with those and continue to play around with those. So all right, with that being said, I think that will wrap up our Root of Nightmares breakdown. If you made it this far, that means the episode came out, which is good to know. That means our editor didn't quit on the spot when he has seen our runtime for this mammoth episode. So thank you so much for listening to episode 57 of Podcast versus Enemies. We also want to thank our audio engineer, Autodidaktos, for helping us sound nice and crisp each and every episode. Gosh, we're probably going to have to send him like a gift basket or something for this one. Holy moly. Anyways, next week we will do a Grandmaster Nightfall Primer where we cover the new champion counters, overcharges, surges, and threats, and fire team composition tips. Until then, my name is Impetus. You can find me by that name on Discord and in Destiny, and as Impetus always on Twitter. Court, where can we find you?
You can find me on Destiny playing with Saint and Impetus and Otto, just to make sure we keep him we keep him not quitting the podcast and
Love you, buddy.
do all the raids with him, do all the master challenges for all the raids that have came out. But you can also find me over on Twitter as Court Projects, on Discord as Court, and you can find my information spreadsheets and infographics over in the Destiny Massive Breakdowns website, on top of other great applications and spreadsheets to enhance your Destiny experience. Saint, where can we find you?
Yep, my name is Saint Kabr. You can find me by that name, the Destiny Massive Breakdowns Discord, or hanging out on Twitter. Thanks for listening to another episode.